Chapter 955. Yes, this is a huge matter. Forefather Tian Yu nodded. Ever since the primitive, ancient, sacred world shattered, the primal chaos void expanded continuously. Thus, destruction devils were born at the boundary of the void. Over the long years, the number of destruction devils increased, and the pressure of resisting against them increased. They were born for the sake of destruction. Perhaps this vast primal chaos void wants to destroy us too, allowing a new world to be born. We might be strong, but before the supreme law, we're just slightly stronger ants. Dongbua Shui Ying was startled. He recalled how he had once peeked into a higher dimension world through the black fog spherical hole. Even though the number of destruction devils increased, we always thought that our defenses were good and watertight. Forefather Tian Yu solemnly said, but not long after I wandered around and created many cosmoses, roughly equivalent to the fifth epoch of your hometown cosmos, we discovered that there are destruction devils hiding within the 5 great sacred worlds. What? Dongbua Shui Ying was startled. The destruction devils have entered the 5 great sacred worlds? Aren't they always intercepted outside? Even Shui Ying himself knew that the destruction devils were perfectly defended outside, and not a single one had escaped from the net. We also thought that our defenses are good, but the truth is right in front of us, and it is indisputable that there are indeed destruction devils hiding within. Forefather Tian Yu shook his head. We have carefully recalled and guessed that the destruction devils had previously slaughtered their way to the final spatial barrier. We thought that we had perfectly defended against them, but there must have been a fish that slipped through the net and passed through the final spatial barrier. Currently, we have discovered more than 100 traces of destruction devils. They are all golden armor destruction devils, and we can deduce that there are at least 15 different golden armor destruction devils. They are all cunning and cautious, and have the ability to change their aura. They usually disguise as ordinary cultivators, and would only reveal themselves during massacres. Thus, we have yet to capture a single one of them. They were born for the sake of destruction. Hence, they could not help but grab hold of an opportunity and start a heaven-shattering massacre. We have always said that there is a certain devour-class devil who is wantonly slaughtering. None of them dared to call themselves destruction devils. Forefather Tian Yu shook his head. Furthermore, the more destruction devils there are at the boundary of the void, the greater the frequency of their large-scale attacks. Occasionally, they would kill their way to the final spatial barrier. As a result, in the large-scale massacres across the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void, the frequency of discovering traces of destruction devils is increasing. Everyone understands. Right now, we still have the upper hand, but as time goes on, our advantage will become smaller and smaller until we are at a disadvantage. In the end, he couldn't hold on any longer. Damn it, that Saint Master isn't helping at all. If he were to help, it would be much easier for us. Dongbua Shui Ying remained silent. Even if the Holy Master were to help, he would only be able to delay the process of destruction. Maybe Sacred Master understands that the destruction devils will become more and more rampant, and he no longer has the patience to deal with them. Forefather Tian Yu said, the early Sacred Masters were extremely patient. They could lay dormant for a long time for a certain goal. But this time, just to vent his anger, he consumed a portion of the origin energy that he had accumulated for a long time to kill your master. Gucci. Not for benefits, but just to vent his anger? This is something the Holy Lord would never do in the past. Both internal and external troubles. Forefather Tian Yu shook his head. Naturally, Sacred Master isn't a worry. He can't affect the overall situation. The most fatal ones are the destruction devils. Maybe there will be a day when this primal chaos void is destroyed, but we should try our best to delay for as long as possible. As time goes by, a miracle might happen. We have already done our best to defend against these destruction devils at the boundary of the void. What worries us now is the destruction devils that have infiltrated in. They are extremely careful. Cosmos gods have even investigated in the dark several times, yet they seem to be able to detect the existence of cosmos gods. They would not appear at all. and primal chaos existences have no hope of victory at all. They might even lose their lives if they are careless. Of the 10 primal chaos existences that have fallen recently, 2 died in battle at the boundary of the void, and 2 died in internal battles. The other 6 were assassinated by these destruction devils that have infiltrated in. Dongbua Shui Ying was startled. The name list of the 10 primal chaos existences that have fallen recently appeared in his mind. We have always concealed this secret precisely because we are afraid of causing panic among the cultivators in the primal chaos void across the 5 great sacred worlds. Forefather Tian, you said, AI, when cosmos gods get close, they will not appear at all. They do not have the confidence to deal with primal chaos existences either. Those at the 9th level strength do not dare to take the risk either. Forefather Tian, you shook his head. After all, there have been 2 peak 8th level existences that have fallen. Thus, we hope to find a primal chaos existence with 9th level strength and the ability to escape through an ultra-long distance teleportation to investigate. Forefather Tian, you said, but there are very few at the 9th level strength. Furthermore, they have to use ultra-long distance teleportation. Before you, there are only 3 of them. Dongbua Shuang knew about this too. There were very few who could use ultra-long distance teleportation, and the number of cosmos gods who could use it could be counted with one's fingers. As there were many primal chaos existences, there were a batch of them, but there were indeed only 3 who could reach the 9th level strength. 1 from the ancient sacred religion, 1 from the ancestor mother religion, and the last one from the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master. Forefather Tian Yu felt helpless. Neither the 6 great holy grounds nor the myriad ancient sacred world have any. But you have hope. Forefather Tian, you looked at Dongbua Shuang. You know how to use ultra-long distance teleportation, and you are currently at the peak of the 8th level. The moment you reach the 9th level strength, you will be the best candidate. Forefather Tian, you said. Dongbua Shuang nodded, but he could not help but ask. Even 2 peak 8th level existences died in battle, and we could not save them in time. Are there cosmos gods among the destruction devils that have infiltrated in? This is also why we feel that those at the 9th level who know how to use ultra-long distance teleportation are the most suitable candidates. Forefather Tian Yu said solemnly, even though we do not have any evidence, we suspect that there are cosmos god destruction devils that have infiltrated in, and those at the 9th level would not be killed instantaneously. They could survive for a while. Relying on ultra-long distance teleportation would allow them to easily survive. Naturally, we will also prepare a huge gift for you. With this gift, in addition to your own strength, you will naturally be fine. Forefather Tian, you said. Following this, you should pay more attention to your survival techniques and become stronger in this aspect. Forefather Tian, you said, your current survival capabilities should be ranked in the top 30 amongst primal chaos existences. If your Imperial Dragon inheritance reaches the 9th transformation, coupled with your voidification ability and your ability to hide in the illusory world, your survival capabilities should be ranked in the top 10. Dongbua Shuang understood. There were about 20 primal chaos giants at the 9th level, and a large batch at the peak of the 8th level. If Shuang were to rely on the 8th transformation of the Imperial Dragon inheritance, his defenses would be ranked outside the top 100. After all, the fleshy bodies of the Devour class system were extremely strong. There is also the strongest warrior system, Hex Cultivation, and some ancient cultivation systems with unique talents. There were many who had strong survival capabilities. Dongbua Shuang's physical defenses could be ranked in the top 30, and that was quite terrifying. If he were in the top 10, he would be able to resist against the attacks of cosmos gods. By then, coupled with this huge gift that we have prepared, you'll be safer. Forefather Tian Yu chuckled. Of course, your offensive techniques are still slightly weaker. Currently, your offense is ranked in the top 50 amongst primal chaos existences. In the future, I hope that you can deal against those extremely powerful destruction devils that have infiltrated our world. You can't kill them within a short period, and they can escape in different directions. I understand. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Go to the boundary of the void and properly cultivate. The majority of those at the 9th level star pagoda strength have experienced countless battles at the boundary of the void. Forefather Tian, you said. Amen. Dongbua Shuang was looking forward to it too. Fighting with the destruction devils at the boundary of the void was one aspect of tempering oneself. The other aspect was that after killing the destruction devils, they would emit a unique energy that was similar to the energy from the origin world rocks. Absorbing it would greatly benefit the soul. Furthermore, the stronger the destruction devils killed, the greater the help it would provide. Ordinary gray-armored destruction devils would emit energy comparable to ordinary origin world rocks after they died. If they were blood-armored, the effect would be even better than using origin world rocks. If they were golden-armored, that would be even more amazing. These were all meant to improve the quality of the soul. Hence, fighting there was one aspect of accumulating experience, and the quality of the soul could be improved too. That was why the majority of 9th level star pagoda primal chaos existences would appear after tempering themselves there. Chapter 9:56. All right, what do you need to prepare for this trip to the boundary of the void? Forefather Tian, you chuckled. Your teacher has left behind many treasures for you. There is no need for you to not use them. Even though the resources required for the Cinnabar inheritance and Imperial Dragon inheritance had been prepared, it was just a tiny bit compared to the treasures left behind by Gucci. I do indeed need to prepare. Dongbua Shuang said. I need 100,000 origin world rocks. 100,000? Forefather Tian, you was startled. Do you want to eat it? Yes. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Forefather Tian, you laughed out loud. What a fellow. Those who are willing to eat 100,000 origin world rocks at the primal chaos realm can be counted with one's fingers. At least I know of two. Some had great harvests during fortuitous encounters, and they would not publicize it even if they ate it. 100,000 origin world rocks should be beneficial to those at the primal chaos realm. If a cosmos god were to eat it, it would be of lesser help. Dongbua Shuang said. All right, I'll prepare it for you. Forefather Tian, you chuckled and nodded. I'll still deduct it from the 300,000 origin world rocks. Other than that, I need a secret treasure that could weaken attacks. Dongbua Shuang said. At the boundary of the void, he felt that he was powerful, but it was better to be cautious. What's the price? Forefather Tian, you asked. Between 50,000 to 100,000 origin world rocks. Dongbua Shuang said. He still had to keep some treasures for himself, since he did not know how long it would take for him to accumulate such a huge amount of wealth. In the future, he might need it urgently. Indeed, you can exchange for a better secret treasure. Forefather Tian, you nodded after hearing the price. There aren't many secret treasures. I feel that the most suitable one for you is the one in the hands of Wuzu. It's called 3-colored layered cloud. I'll ask Wuzu first to see what price I can buy it for. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Ordinary void, god, weapons were negligible to him. Only secret treasures could help him. What was a secret treasure? A cosmos-ranked treasure. Some of them were terrifying treasures that were born naturally in the chaos void or the primitive ancient sages sector and slightly modified into some special items. Or perhaps it was purely a treasure with a mysterious origin. For instance, that third fire cloud realm cauldron of Monarch 9 Cloud had an unknown origin, but it was so precious that even Sacred Master desired to get it. He had dealt against Monarch 9 Cloud time and time again. Thus, Cosmos-ranked treasures could only be considered the bottom rung of secret treasures. Ancestor Sorcerer has mentioned that 80,000 origin world rocks. Forefather Tian, you turned to Shuang. Wuzu Shui Ying Dongbua Shui. Dongbua Shui Chun. Wuzu Wu. And Wu. I've already spoken to Ancestor Sorcerer. He'll soon send his subordinates over. Oh, this is the detailed information regarding the secret treasure 3-colored layer cloud that he just sent over. Forefather Tian, you sent a set of information to Shuang. If he didn't buy it, Forefather Tian, you and the others would have a rough idea. Dongbua Shuang took a look. The triple-colored heavy cloud was a mystical cloud that the sorcerer ancestor had discovered in the vast void of primordial chaos. He had also traced back time to investigate the birth process of the triple-colored heavy cloud. This was originally a special cloud that was born during the primitive ancient sacred world era. Later on, when it shattered, it underwent some changes. After Wu Zhu researched on its many characteristics, he eventually created this secret treasure based on its characteristics. Wu Zhu sent someone to deliver the three-colored heavy cloud. Ancestor Tian Yu kept it personally and passed it to Dongbua Shuang. Evidently, this secret treasure had landed in the hands of Dongbua Shuang. He had to keep a secret. Only Ancestor Tian Yu, Wu Zhu, and a few others knew about it. Three-colored heavy cloud. Dongbua Shuang held the soft white cloud in his hands. If he were to break it apart, he would be able to see the blue and gold clouds within. White, blue, gold, these were the three colors. This secret treasure is most suitable to be used as clothes. Dongbua Shuang sat cross-legged on the silver silk praying mat in the meditation room. He was extremely patient as he started to refine it. The usage of secret treasures was extremely complicated. If one didn't understand it, they might not even know how to use it. Fortunately, the three-colored heavy cloud was created by Wu Zhu. Dongbua Shuang bought it from Wu Zhu. Naturally, he knew the detailed refining method. The refining method wasn't difficult. It just required time to nurture and refine it. During the refining process, a few Origin World rocks would occasionally appear in Dongbua Shuang's hands. He would throw them into his mouth and open his mouth. The Origin World rocks would shrink and fly into his stomach. It was as though he was eating snacks. He would casually throw a few. After all, Dongbua Shuang's soul was much stronger than Jing Qiu's. The Origin World rocks didn't pose any pressure to him. If he was willing, he could even eat 1,000 of them in one go. However, he wanted to experience the minute changes in his soul. This is indeed the Origin World rock. It is rumored to be the origin source energy of the primitive ancient sacred world. Dongbua Shuang thought. The primitive ancient sacred world in the past was equivalent to the current primal chaos void. This origin source energy would strengthen the soul in all aspects. Maybe it would be better to kill the destruction devils. But how many destruction devils would he have to kill to get 100,000 Origin World rocks? One had to know that the destruction devils were extremely cunning and would not casually send themselves to death. Even 9th-level primal chaos existences would only be able to absorb 20,000 to 30,000 Origin World rocks after a long period of killing. Days passed. Dongbua Shuang's soul was transforming every day. It was getting stronger, and his deductions and comprehension had become faster. In the blink of an eye, 19 years had passed. Dongbua Shuang might not be in a rush to eat the Origin World rocks, but he still finished eating all 100,000 of them. On this day, the three-colored heavy cloud had been completely refined. This feels great. Dongbua Shuang felt that these 19 years were a form of enjoyment. The feeling of absorbing the Origin World rocks was wonderful. After eating 100,000 Origin World rocks, my soul has strengthened by 30%. Dongbua Shuang was inwardly delighted. It might not seem much, but in reality, it was an increase of 30% from his original foundation. After cultivating the 9 transformations of Cinnabar's inheritance, his soul had reached an extreme stage, and it was hard for him to improve it further. In the future, even if he became a cosmos god, the degree of improvement would not be too exaggerated. Hence, Dongbua Shuang was satisfied with improving his soul by 30%. Three-colored heavy cloud. Dongbua Shuang thought. Wah! A soft white cloud lump rapidly expanded on the surface of Dongbua Shuang's body. It turned into a relatively thick snow-white robe. This robe was pure white like snow. Naturally, it was formed from the secret treasure cloud lump. It is quite thick, and it can keep me warm. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. He felt comfortable wearing this snow-white robe. According to what forefathers said, with this secret treasure, my body's resistance should be ranked in the top 10 amongst primal chaos existences. After all, how many primal chaos existences would be willing to spend 80,000 Origin World rocks just for a protective secret treasure. To Dongbua Shuang, this was not considered much. His target was the sacred master, and before that, he had to be careful and vigilant. He did not want to fall early. Naturally, he would use the origin world rocks as soon as possible. In the future, when he became a cosmos god, he believed he could earn more origin world rocks. Even if he did not become a cosmos god, this secret treasure was naturally worth it. It should be time for me to head to the boundary of the void. Dongbua Shuang thought. Wah! An incarnation condensed by the side. Usually, this incarnation of his would be responsible for many trifling matters within the Great Void Heaven Temple, like teaching disciples or participating in some important meetings within the Great Void Heaven Temple. As long as it was not a battle, ordinary matters would consume very little of his heart energy. If there were no important matters, his incarnation could even enter a deep sleep. That would consume a negligible amount of energy. Go. The void by the side of the meditation room warped. Dongbua Shuang, who was wearing a thick snow-white robe, took a step into it. Following that, he disappeared from the vicinity. I will inform you beforehand that I will have a day off tomorrow. Chapter 9:57. Even though the seven-star oceanic sacred world was very far from the boundary of the void, Dongbua Shuang took a moment to appear from the distorted void. Garbed in a thick white robe, Dongbua Shuang looked over. He could see an extremely small fort in the distant void. This was the fort that cultivators paid a huge price to construct at the boundary of the Void Castle. The number of experts gathered in the Void Castle far exceeded any other sacred world. There were at least 3 true bodies of cosmos gods stationed here. As for incarnations, more than 10 cosmos gods had incarnations here. Even the carefree Luo City Lord had an incarnation here for a long period of time. There were more than 200 true bodies of primal chaos giants here, and there were even more incarnations. There were also many Unity Realm experts who came here to risk their lives. This was the front line resisting against the destruction devils. And today, the new primal chaos realm Dongbua Shuang had come here too. Void Castle. Dongbua Shuang looked at that small fort. He took another step, causing space to distort before entering the Void Castle. Xiao. The Void Castle was in reality huge. It spanned more than 50 million kilometers, and the majority of it was filled with arrays and weapons. Within one of the palace halls, there were a total of 200 over primal chaos existences chatting in groups of 2s and 3s. They were chatting happily. Wang. Accompanied by the distortion of space, Dongbua Shuang directly appeared within the palace hall. Hall Master Dongbua, those primal chaos cultivators who were drinking and discussing about Tao, turned over. When they saw Dongbua Shuang, many of them could not help but chuckle. Heart imitation religious master. Dongbua Shuang simply replied with a chuckle. He then walked towards the 5 primal chaos existences in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Who would have thought that Dongbua Shuang would come to the Void Castle so quickly? The other primal chaos existences were also discussing. It seems he has reached a bottleneck in his closed-door cultivation. He should be at the peak of the 8th level Star Pagoda strength now. This truly makes us feel ashamed. Even I can't get through the 8th level even after cultivating for so long. The group of primal chaos existences were chatting idly. Almost all of them were incarnations, all of them resting here, ready to go out and fight at any moment. And at another corner, Dongbua Shuang had met with the 5 primal chaos experts from the Great Void Heaven Temple. Why are there only incarnations in this hall? The 5 of you are also incarnations? Dongbua Shuang smiled in surprise. Later, the Void Castle will also arrange a small cave residence for you. The Primal Chaos Hall Master held an ancient wine cup and said with a smile, when the battle situation is relatively easy, it's usually an avatar that fights outside. Only when the battle situation is urgent will the true body take action. You know that the real body must be in the inner region, right? Palace Master Li Wing also said. Yes, I know. Dongbua Shuang nodded. The destruction devils were born within the boundary of the void within the Lost World Corridor. The space within the Lost World corridor was chaotic, like a strange maze. Even cosmos gods would lose themselves in it and never walk out. According to rumors, there were many layers within the Lost World corridor, and those layers would give birth to destruction devils. Of course, the layers were graded too. Most would only give birth to gray-armored destruction devils, and it was rare for them to give birth to blood-armored destruction devils. According to legends, there were some unique layers that could give birth to golden-armored destruction devils. Thus, the cultivators started to build a large-scale warning array in the outer space of the Lost World corridor to envelop the outermost region of the corridor. The moment any destruction devils came out, they would be discovered through the warning array. This warning array region was also the outer region. Meanwhile, in a relatively small area behind the realm formation, the cultivators had completely sealed off the void in this area at all costs. The strength of the seal far surpassed that of the sacred world. Even the cosmos gods within the destruction devils could not teleport. They could only fly slowly. Hence, the moment the destruction devils came out of the Lost World corridor, they would first be located in the outer region. The moment they entered the inner region, they could only fly slowly. Even though the region was small, if they flew slowly, it would take a long time. The cultivators had sufficient time to eliminate them. At the end of the inner region was the spatial barrier. This was also the final layer of defense. If the destruction devils could charge through the inner region and break through the spatial barrier, they would be able to enter the vast primal chaos void. By then, the 5 great sacred worlds, countless cosmoses, and primal chaos lands would be free for them to invade. They can only fly in the inner region. They do not know where we are, yet we can discover them. We can easily surround and kill them. Leading Wing Home Master chuckled. Furthermore, even if a cosmos god destruction devil steals his aura and sneaks in, the moment he reveals his strength, we can teleport through an ultra-long distance. A group of cosmos gods will then surround and attack him. Donghua Shuang nodded. Even though the seal in the inner region was formidable, ultra-long distance teleportation was practically unsolvable. They could enter any location, including the Lost World corridor. The cultivators relied on ultra-long distance teleportation to explore the Lost World corridor. They even discovered some layers. After locking onto their location, a large group of cosmos gods would immediately rush over and destroy the layers. After that, they would rely on ultra-long distance teleportation to escape. By relying on ultra-long distance teleportation, the cultivators had gained the initiative. As for the destruction devils, they had yet to discover any ultra-long distance teleportation. Naturally, only the fallen Emperor Jiyun could resolve the problem of ultra-long distance teleportation. He had already researched and created an array that could seal ultra-long distance teleportation before falling. Fellow cultivators, tell me what we have to take note of when we go out to battle. Donghua Shuang asked. Even though he knew some information, those present at the Primal Chaos realm were more experienced. Previously, Primal Chaos Hall Master mentioned that we would usually send our incarnations out to battle. We would only act with our true bodies during emergencies. Celestial Water Hall Master shook his head. That's because the incarnations of Primal Chaos Hall Master are at the peak of the 7th level strength. We are much weaker. Like me, my true body is only at the peak of the 7th level. My incarnations are even weaker. It is impossible for us to gain anything just by relying on our incarnations. Hence, our true bodies would frequently be in the inner region. We would first let our incarnations scout ahead and ascertain the degree of danger before our true bodies would charge in. Only by killing some sufficiently powerful destruction devils would it be helpful to our souls. Donghua Shuang nodded. The more powerful the destruction devil, the more likely they would leave behind some precious materials. Leading Wing Home Master added. Precious materials? Donghua Shuang knew that it was not like fighting in the Star Pagoda, where there were no benefits. Battling with the destruction devils, other than tempering oneself, one could also absorb unique energy that was beneficial to one's soul. Furthermore, some parts of the body of those destruction devils would become unique. Even if they died in battle, those parts would remain. They were all precious materials that could be used to refine cosmos-ranked treasures and other secret treasures. Like Chung Kun in the past, he was a body material of a destruction devil. For instance, a certain golden armored destruction devil's hair could be used as a weapon. His hair was like a true weapon that could not be destroyed. Even if he died in battle, his hair would remain, and this hair could be used to refine secret treasures. It might be worth a few thousand, or even more than 10,000 Origin World rocks. This required luck. One had to reach a stage where the body part had turned into a weapon and could not be reversed. An absolute majority of destruction devils died, and their bodies were completely destroyed. I've been stuck at this bottleneck for too long. The help the destruction devils can provide me is negligible. Primal Chaos Hall Master chuckled. Donghua, you have just broken through not too long ago. You should still work hard. I understand. Donghua Shuiying nodded. Also, you can try exploring the Lost World Corridor. Primal Chaos Hall Master chuckled. Chapter 958. Right, by exploring the Lost World Corridor, we will discover their many layers and directly destroy them. That is how we truly cut off their roots. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master said, the majority of cosmos gods have sent their incarnations in. I will also send my incarnations to be brought in by them. The moment we discover the layers, I can ascertain the location, and the true bodies of cosmos gods could directly kill their way in. Donghua Shuiying nodded. The Lost World Corridor gave birth to many batches of destruction devils. Destroying their layers was indeed fundamental, but it was too difficult. The Lost World Corridor itself was too dangerous. Secondly, the more important the layers, the destruction devils would send a large group of experts to guard them. Only cosmos gods with sufficiently high realms would be able to reap greater rewards by sending their incarnations. Most primal chaos incarnations would not be able to reap much rewards. Donghua, you can teleport through an ultra-long distance. You can send some incarnations in when you're free. Who knows, you might be lucky enough to discover some important layers. Celestial Water Hall Master said, Donghua Shuiying could teleport through an ultra-long distance, and it was public knowledge within the Great Void Heaven Temple. It is easy to get lost in the Lost World Corridor. Furthermore, the important layers will definitely be guarded. Donghua Shuiying shook his head. That's right. Even the incarnations of cosmos gods would frequently get lost. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master sighed. In the primal chaos void, the most suitable to explore would be Myriad Realm Tavern Master and his lineage, Mount Chai-Mei. Myriad Realm Tavern Master has many avatars, and he can easily teleport through an ultra-long distance. If his avatars enter the Lost World Corridor, even if they were to get lost, they could immediately teleport away. Celestial Water Hall Master, Leading Wing Hall Master, and the others agreed. Donghua Shuiying nodded too. There were two dangers in the Lost World Corridor. One was that it was easy to get lost, and the other was that there were destruction devils stationed within. Get lost. One could avoid it by relying on ultra-long distance teleportation. Garrison? One could rely on ultra-long distance teleportation to bypass the garrison and enter the layers. Nonetheless, those who ventured and were usually incarnations. Like Inquisitive Sky Hall Master and the others, their true bodies could execute ultra-long distance teleportation, but their incarnations could not. Incarnations could only act as spatial markers. Even if their true bodies opened a passage, it would merely connect the incarnations to the outside world. He could not travel freely in the Lost World Corridor. In the past, Gucci and Void Primogenitor could teleport through an ultra-long distance after becoming a cosmos god. But that was a forceful spatial teleportation, and it required a lot of hard energy. If it was just a clone, it wouldn't be able to execute a move like super long-distance teleportation. Only the lineage of the Myriad Realm Tavern Master. It was said that the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master was extremely hard to reach. Those who had truly cultivated it were Myriad Realm Tavern Master, and the other was the 9th level Star Pagoda expert, Mount Chai-Mei. The Myriad Realm Tavern Master had countless clones and could easily appear anywhere. Mount Chime was slightly weaker. Other than his main body, he only had a clone. However, his incarnation could also perform ultra-long distance teleportation. Clearly, their bloodline wasn't that of ancient cultivators. Rather, they had truly grasped the art of ultra-long distance teleportation. Furthermore, it didn't consume too much of their mental strength, and their incarnations could teleport. The Cosmos Gods have also asked Myriad Realm Tavern Master and Mount Chime for help in the exploration. They're even willing to pay a relatively high price. Primal Chaos Hall Master shook his head. It's a pity that the two of them have asked for a very high price. Actually, according to logic, every cultivator with strength should come and resist against the destruction devils. After all, this is saving the entire primal chaos void and also saving ourselves. But Sacred Master and Ancestor Mother are madmen. Myriad Realm, Tavern Master, and Mount Chime similarly only recognize benefits. Otherwise, they wouldn't help at all. Myriad Realm Tavern Master's price is ridiculously high. Even Cosmos Gods can't afford it. Mount Chime is ultimately at the Primal Chaos realm. His asking price is relatively low, but it is still very high. He needs 10,000 Origin World rocks to explore 100 million years. If he were to discover a blood-armored destruction devil lair, he would need another 10,000 Origin World rocks. If he were to discover a golden-armored destruction devil lair, he would need 200,000 Origin World rocks. Primal Chaos Hall Master sighed. This price is too high. Donghua Shui Ying sighed too. It was too ruthless. Without any harvest, he would need 10,000 Origin World rocks to explore for 100 million years. What if it was 3 billion years? One had to know that Senior Guqi, who was a Cosmos God, had left behind all the treasures to Donghua Shui Ying, and the total value was only about 360,000 Origin World rocks. A Cosmos God selling all his treasures could only make Mount Chime toil for 6 billion years? Even though the price is high, Wu Zhu and the others had once asked Mount Chime for help. Primal Chaos Hall Master said, but just 1 billion years later, Mount Chime merely discovered 5 blood-armored destruction devil lairs, and the Cosmos Gods had to fork out a total of 150,000 Origin World rocks. From then on, the Cosmos Gods no longer asked Mount Chime for help. I've heard that Mount Chime was willing to reduce the price by half, but the Cosmos Gods did not agree to it. The price is too high, and it isn't worth it. Even though the efficiency of the Cosmos Gods' incarnations might be low, over a long period, Wu Zhu and the others have their own techniques, and they have discovered dozens of blood-armored destruction devil lairs and 2 golden armor destruction devil lairs. Primal Chaos Hall Master said, how hateful. Myriad Realm Tavern Master and Mount Chime, who specialize in scouting, have asked for such a high price. Unless when the destruction devils break through our defenses and sweep across the entire primal chaos void, what meaning is there for the two of them to live? If what we guessed is right, by then, the primal chaos void would give birth to a new world, and they would still die. Donghua Shui Ying softly nodded. That's right. It was fine if some of the weaker primal chaos existences did not come to help. But those who could play a huge role, like the strongest Sacred Master and the other extremely powerful Ancestor Mother, did not come to help. Even Myriad Realm Tavern Master and his lineage, Mount Chime, did not face any danger when they came to help. Furthermore, they asked for a ridiculously high price. How hateful! Celestial Water Hall Master coldly snorted. If it were possible to kill them, the Cosmos Gods would have long forced them to do so. Myriad Realm Tavern Master has many incarnations, and it is impossible to find the avatar of Mount Chime even if he hides. Primal Chaos Hall Master shook his head. This lineage of theirs is truly heaven-defying in survival. Donghua Shui Ying agreed. Furthermore, Donghua Shui Ying felt that the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master was similar to the 4 diagrams absolute art he got from Emperor Jiyan. For instance, ultra-long distance teleportation was a technique he grasped. He could execute it at the Unity Realm, and now that he reached the Primal Chaos Realm, he could create an incarnation and use it too. It's just that their lineage seemed more formidable since they could refine avatars. One had to know that other than their lineage, only those with unique talents could have avatars. Nobody can deal against their lineage. Sacred Master and the others aren't willing to become enemies with them. Our three great sacred worlds aren't willing to become enemies with them either. Primal Chaos Hall Master shook his head. After all, enemies who can't be killed and trapped are the most troublesome. The Dongbua Shuang felt puzzled. Why didn't Sacred Master, Ancestor Mother, and the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master act to help the Destruction Devils? Dongbua Shuang could not help but think about the most fundamental black fog spherical hole in the void which he had peeked into that mysterious higher dimensional world. Do they know more secrets? Otherwise, they shouldn't be like this before death. This was merely a conjecture. Even though he had cultivated the second and third diagrams, his understanding of the higher dimensional world was too little. Dongbua Shuang felt that the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master was similar to that 4 diagrams absolute art of his. Perhaps they might have a deeper understanding of the higher dimensional world. Since those who specialize in scouting aren't helping us, we can only rely on numbers to make up for it. Cosmos gods are going to scout, and at times, we 9th-level Star Pagoda experts would also send our incarnations to scout. Primal Chaos Hall Master said. Amen, I plan on going too. Dongbua Shuang said. In the 5 great sacred worlds of the Primal Chaos Void, other than the 2 from the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master, he could similarly teleport through an ultra-long distance with his incarnations. But he had to keep it a secret. Like Mount Chime, other than being able to teleport through an ultra-long distance, he had even cultivated avatars. Cosmos gods could not find his avatars when they were hidden. Hence, nobody could deal against him. Behind him was Myriad Realm Tavern Master, who had many avatars. But he did not have any avatars. The moment he revealed that his incarnations could teleport through an ultra-long distance, it would be troublesome. I'll go and scout by myself. I'll leave behind a spatial mark when I find the lair of a blood-armored warrior and temporarily not publicize it. After all, if I were to publicize it, discovering many important lairs consecutively would most likely arouse suspicion. When I discover the golden armored lair, I'll directly publicize it. Dongbua Shuang thought. He was guarding against Myriad Realm Tavern Master and Sacred Master. After all, who did not want to obtain the ultra-long distance teleportation technique. Sacred Master could not deal against the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master. But how could he deal with him? Star. Chapter 959. There were many small-scaled cavern dwellings within the Void Castle. Dongbua Shuang was allocated one too. It was approximately half a kilometer in size, and it was rare for a primal chaos expert to have such a small cavern dwelling. But this was ultimately the front line resisting against the Destruction Devils. Those Unity Realm experts would only be allocated a small courtyard temporarily, within the cultivation room of a small-scaled cavern dwelling. Dongbua Shuang, who was wearing a thick white robe, sat cross-legged. He closed his eyes and began peering through the smallest black fog spherical holes in the void. At the same time, when he was peering into the higher dimensional world, he immediately saw many other holes connected to this place. Through those holes, Dongbua Shuang saw many regions. The further away he was from the region, the further away he was from the holes, and the more blurry his vision became. Lost World Corridor. Under the observation of Dongbua Shuang, he saw the final spatial barrier in front of the Void Castle. He also saw the inner region, outer region, and the Lost World Corridor that nurtured many Destruction Devils. So mysterious. Dongbua Shuang was too far away from the boundary of the Void in the past, and he could not see the Lost World Corridor clearly. One had to know that the further the distance, the greater the error in teleportation. For instance, Ancestor Desert had sent Dongbua Shuang and the others from the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. The deviation from the Great Void Heaven Temple had taken Ancestor Devil half a day to travel through the spatial tunnel. One could see how exaggerated the error was. The reason why it was so exaggerated was because his perception was too blurry. The Void Castle is relatively close to the Lost World Corridor. Dongbua Shui Ying could barely see some of the veins. The entire Lost World Corridor. Under his observation, it felt like an enormous beehive that had fused into the boundary of the primal chaos void. There were many veins within the beehive, and these veins were too complex. He could only observe the larger veins, and there were many smaller ones too. If he was careless, he would get lost within. The Lost World Corridor should be the strangest place in space. Even cosmos gods would get lost in it. Dongbua Shui sighed. Let's go. With a thought, a black-robed man began to condense beside him. His entire body was covered in black robes, and his face was indistinct and blurry. There was even a horn growing out of his forehead. He had to be careful when heading to the Lost World Corridor to investigate. He had to keep his avatar's ability to teleport a secret. Of course, even if someone saw the distorted space appear around him, he would disappear into it. They would probably think that the main body had opened up a teleportation channel to connect to the incarnation. But it was easy to hide from his own people. Dongbua Shui Ying was worried about the Destruction Devils. If he were discovered by the Destruction Devils many times, and the Destruction Devils discovered that this Dongbua Shui Ying had actually appeared at many important locations, it would be slightly troublesome. Dongbua Shui Ying did not dare to underestimate the intelligence of the Destruction Devils. He had to be extremely careful. The path of cultivation had to be cautious. Hence, he did not use his appearance when he entered the Lost World Corridor. He even changed his aura. Being an expert with the highest realm in the Tao of Mirage, it was too easy for him to slightly change his aura. To him, turning illusions into reality was a simple task. Xiao, the space by the side distorted. The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying entered and disappeared from the vicinity. Lost World Corridor. The strangest place in space was the place where the Destruction Devils were born. In one of the regions. Within the distorted space, the black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying walked out. Dongbua Shui Ying looked around him. He was slightly startled. This was a space approximately a few billion kilometers wide. The space was like a distorted fruit with many layers of membranes stacked on top of each other. Many places within the space were folded and distorted. It was extremely strange and unfathomable. As one walked, he would cross several tens of thousands of kilometers if he was not careful. Naturally, there were places where he would directly tear apart living beings. It is actually a completely sealed space. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head. If it were others, this teleportation would have failed, because the sealed space could not be exited at all. Other people would usually send their true bodies to teleport again. This sealed space seems to be in the midst of growth and transformation. Dongbua Shui Ying could vaguely feel the transformation of the space, and the folded space here is quite stable. His horizons were broadened. Even though he was a void walker at the primal chaos realm and had cultivated the 4 diagrams absolute art by Emperor Ying, the Lost World Corridor operated by the Supreme Law still made Dongbua Shui Ying startled. Just a sealed space that was still growing was so unique. This allowed Dongbua Shui Ying's understanding of the void to widen by a few notches. This was the broadening of his horizons. If he did not personally witness it, he would not dare to imagine the various structures of the void. I should hurry up and find a corridor. Dongbua Shui Ying's incarnation immediately began peering through the most fundamental black fog, spherical holes of the void. Even though he was within the Lost World Corridor, he could only see a relatively small region of his surroundings through the holes. The further he was, the more blurred his peering became. The law suppression of the Lost World Corridor was beyond that of the Sacred World. The region he could clearly see was very small, but this space spanning a few billion kilometers was merely a small corner that he could see. There's a corridor over there. Dongbua Shui Ying soon found what he was looking for. Space distorted. The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying stepped into it. When he appeared again, he was in another region far away. There was a dazzling, colorful spatial corridor over there. Corridor. The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying stood on this spatial corridor. The width of the spatial corridor was different. Some were wider, and some were narrower. Most were several hundred kilometers wide. It twisted as it traveled. It was like a passage that traversed through many regions of the Lost World Corridor. Only by passing through the Lost World Corridor could one move forward more easily. Why were incarnations that could utilize ultra-long distance teleportation so formidable? It was precisely because they could easily observe their surroundings by staying within the Lost World Corridor. The difficulty of finding the lairs of the destruction devils was many times easier than the incarnations of cosmos gods searching along the corridor. That was why cosmos gods were willing to pay a huge price to invite Mount Chime. So, Dongbua Shuiying walked along the spatial corridor. Every step he took was a short-distance teleportation. This is truly mysterious. The structure of the Void Corridor is even more mysterious. Dongbua Shuiying praised. Compared to that sealed space that was still growing, the structure of the spatial corridor that was the most important part of the Lost World Corridor was 1,000 times more complicated. It was not a corridor that was formed in a short period. Instead, it was a fixed corridor. A fork. Dongbua Shuiying looked ahead. The corridor was divided into 9 different paths. This was normal since there would be many forks along the way. The void is controlled like bricks, forming a fixed passage. Dongbua Shuiying was constantly flashing with inspiration. He felt that being the most unique spatial corridor, the Lost World Corridor, was absolutely a holy ground for comprehending the void. Ever since he cultivated until now, he had seen all sorts of void scenes, yet none were as unique as the Lost World Corridor. Amen? As Dongbua Shuiying observed it normally, he was also peering through the black fog spherical holes. He wanted to find out more unique aspects of the void within the Lost World Corridor. Naturally, he was also using this to find the layers of the destruction devils. Layers? That should be the layers, right? Dongbua Shuiying carefully walked in the Lost World Corridor for an hour before he found a region that he could barely discern. Over there, that small corner had a faint, wicked, and destructive aura. Let's go and have a look. Since it was just an incarnation, he was naturally more daring. He directly executed an ultra-long distance teleportation and entered that small region filled with wicked and destructive aura. Chapter 960. Dongbua Shuiying entered this region filled with a wicked, destructive aura. Just as he walked out from the distorted void, he saw the appearance of this spatial zone. Lair. This was a unique spatial zone. The void within had been distorted into the shape of a huge tree. On this distorted void tree, many eggs were growing. The eggshells were gray, and these eggs were of different sizes. With a glance, there were a few hundred eggs. The biggest egg had already split open, revealing a destruction devil infant covered in mucus. This destruction devil infant was currently eating the eggshell. Amen? There were 2 fully matured, gray-armored destruction devils guarding this lair. The 2 of them felt a spatial fluctuation and turned over abruptly. But to the distance, there was nothing at all. There were no figures at all. There are cultivators. Even though they could not see or sense the cultivators, they were certain that there were cultivators invading this place. Because this lair was filled with destructive and wicked energy, and Dongbua Shuiying's energy was incompatible with this destructive and wicked energy. I have been discovered. Dongbua Shuiying looked at that void tree. The void actually formed a huge tree, and it could even grow eggs and give birth to destruction devils. Mysterious. If he had the time to carefully observe it, he would be more satisfied. But the intelligence he understood told him that he could no longer delay for time. Many ripples and thin strands descended. Those 2 gray-armored destruction devils were instantly shattered into nothingness. That enormous distorted void tree was also forcefully twisted and torn apart. Those several hundred eggs and some of the destruction devils that had already been born were all annihilated. This incarnation of his might be weak, and it was very taxing for his soul to control the incarnation from a distance. Even when he executed the first style of the destruction flower, he could only unleash 3 flowers at the same time. This strength could only be considered at the 7th floor of Star Tower, but it was amazing for an incarnation to have such strength. Previously, he had unleashed the plate ripple diagram domain on a large scale to kill these destruction devils. Ultimately, they were just gray-armored soldiers, and it was naturally easy for him to slaughter them. Xiao, Donghua Shui Ying took a step before arriving at the spatial door. He then rushed out. Outside the spatial door was a dazzling, colorful spatial corridor. Kill. Chase after him. A golden armored destruction devil was leading the group of blood armored destruction devils. They were currently traveling through the spatial corridor as streams of light. This spatial corridor was dangerous, yet it was the home of the destruction devils. Nevertheless, they were very relaxed and did not have to worry about getting lost. So fast, Donghua Shui Ying was shocked as he flew away. Xiao Xiao Xiao. He teleported at high speed all the way. Even if he was caught, he could just give up on one of his incarnations. If he could preserve it, he would do his best to preserve it. The space corridor itself was rather dangerous. It looked dazzling, but it actually contained many traps. Once one stepped on it, they would be teleported into some dangerous places in the Lost World corridor. As an expert in controlling the void, if Donghua Shui Ying were to advance carefully, he would be able to spot the traps. But once he was being chased, there was no way for him to differentiate between them at high speeds. The resplendent passageway was filled with colorful fluctuations, as if they were all the same. When Donghua Shui Ying teleported once again, the colorful light here trembled, and Donghua Shui Ying disappeared. A light flashed behind. A golden armored destruction devil brought along a group of blood armored destruction devils and stopped. He looked ahead. That cultivator has already lost his way, yet he was fortunate enough to discover a lair. It's just a low-graded lair, the other blood-armored destruction devils said. The known lairs were split into 3 grades. They were the gray-armored grade, blood-armored grade, and golden-armored grade. Clearly, the golden-armored gray destruction devil lair had the highest value because any golden-armored destruction devil would at least be at the 7th floor of Star Tower. And the strongest of them were at the 9th level Star Pagoda standard. Hence, if one could destroy a golden armored graded lair, it would be a huge victory. That time, Mount Chime made such a harsh request that he had to pay 10,000 Origin World rocks every 100 million years if he did not reap any rewards. Discovering a black armored graded lair required 10,000 Origin World rocks, and a golden armored graded lair required a total of 200,000 Origin World rocks. Actually, the gray armored graded lair was not worth mentioning. To Cosmos gods, the lowest graded destruction devils were merely cannon fodder. Any incarnation could easily slaughter them. Even though the black armored graded lair was worthy of attention, it was not worth much in the eyes of Cosmos gods. They invited Mount Chime because they desired to deal with the golden armored graded lair. This 200,000 Origin World rocks was something they were willing to pay. It's a pity that Mount Chime could not find it at all. He merely found 5 black armored graded lairs, and they had to pay 150,000 Origin World rocks. Even Cosmos gods could not be so extravagant. It was the same for these destruction devils too. They did not care about the low-graded lairs. Donghua Shui Ying felt the space in front of him distorting. He soon arrived at a chaotic space. The surrounding space was stacked on top of each other, and there were many fragments of different colors. It was an illusory, colorful world that was incredibly dazzling. He is lost? Donghua Shui Ying understood after seeing this scene. Even Cosmos gods could not walk out of this place, unless he relied on ultra-long distance teleportation. After observing for a moment, Donghua Shui Ying stepped into the distorted space by the side and left. On a fixed spatial corridor, Donghua Shui Ying appeared. This time, he was moving forward carefully. 5 days later, he discovered another lair. This time, he did not recklessly enter the lair. Instead, he came to a withered space close to the lair. Within this withered space, this space was slowly growing. There were no living beings within. Dongbua Shui Ying came within. Amen. Dongbua Shui Ying peered through the black fog spherical hole. Because the lair was just beside, he could see everything clearly. Yet another gray-armored, grated lair. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head. This lair did not have much value in attacking it. Time passed. Dongbua Shui Ying's incarnation continued moving stealthily within the Lost World corridor. Other than the first time he entered a lair out of curiosity, he would enter some spatial zones by the side of the lair and peek at it from a closer distance. But he finally understood that the Lost World corridor was ultimately half the size of an ordinary sacred world. It would take several days to find a low-graded lair, much less a black armored lair. Mao Chaimei could only find 5 black armored lairs with his techniques. It was hard to find them. Dongbua Shui Ying spent more time on cultivation. Finding the lair was just something he did along the way. Along the way, he was observing all sorts of unique aspects of the void in the Lost World corridor. His understanding of the void deepened, and his walker's hidden secret improved once again. The exploration of the inner regions of the Lost World corridor was destined to take a very long time. And within the Void Castle, within a huge palace hall, many primal chaos experts were in groups of 2s and 3s. Almost all of them were incarnations. Dongbua Shui Ying had also separated an incarnation here. As long as this incarnation did not battle, maintaining it would consume very little hard energy. These destruction devils are really vigilant. They usually move in the outer region and don't dare to enter the inner region. They aren't foolish either. They can only fly slowly in the inner region and naturally don't dare to barge in. At the corner of the palace hall, there was a huge projection floating in midair. The projection showed the entire inner region and outer region. There were many destruction devils moving in the outer region, and there were very few destruction devils entering the inner region, only a few dozen teams. Furthermore, they were all near the boundary of the outer region. Clearly, the moment things went wrong, they could escape into the outer region. Shio. As if they had received an unseen order, a total of 12 teams of destruction devils in the outer region entered the inner region at the same time. They were similarly at the boundary. Another 12 teams have entered the inner region. Who is going this time? At that moment, a primal chaos expert asked. Me alone. Let me. At that moment, many primal chaos experts stood up. At the same time, they contacted the Void Castle through their communication talismans. I've been in the Void Castle for quite some time now. It is time for me to go out and fight with these destruction devils. Dongbua Shui Ying also stood up. They took the initiative to fight with the destruction devils, and the destruction devils were deliberately at the boundary. Clearly, they wanted to fight with them too. According to the observations of the cultivators, it was beneficial for the destruction devils to become stronger when they killed other cultivators. Very soon, the Void Castle started making arrangements. The 12 primal chaos experts were to deal with 12 teams, respectively. The incarnations were only used to probe the strength of the other party. Ultimately, they still had to rely on their true bodies to eliminate the other party. Not relying on their true bodies? Some of the stronger, golden-armored destruction devils could not be dealt with by the incarnations of cosmos gods. Chapter 9:61. In the inner region by the boundary of the void, the vast void was filled with nothingness. South, a team of black armor destruction devils was flying at high speed. They were cautiously observing their surroundings. Be careful, there's a cultivator approaching us. Within this team of destruction devils, an unremarkable-looking thin and small destruction devil transmitted. Yes, General. The other destruction devils immediately felt their hearts tightening. They did not doubt their generals at all. If not for the kings requesting them, existences at the level of generals would disdain from leading them into battle. Not far away, the incarnation of Dongbua Shui Ying was currently using his control of the void to observe this team of destruction devils. 100 black armor destruction devils? This group of destruction devils isn't foolish. Why would they send 100 Black Armor Destruction Devils to their deaths? The strength of the Black Armor Destruction Devils was between the 4th and 6th level Star Pagoda standard. If there were only 100 Black Armor Destruction Devils, Dongbua Shui Ying's true body could easily slaughter them all. According to Dongbua Shui Ying chatting with other primal chaos existences during these few days, Dongbua Shui Ying understood how cunning the Destruction Devils were. Their intelligence wasn't any weaker than cultivators. It was hard to kill them. Descend. Dongbua Shui Ying's incarnation rapidly approached. Following that, he did not hesitate to unleash the destruction flowers. Hua, hua, hua. At that moment, 3 destruction flowers descended. 3 black flower buds wrapped around each other. Just as they descended, they wrapped around the leading black-armored destruction devil. Within the team of destruction devils, an unremarkable thin and small destruction devil sneered inwardly. You are here. Cultivator, I'll let you be arrogant for a while. From the moment Dongbua Shui Ying's incarnation started fighting until his true body appeared, this battle lasted for the time taken to brew a cup of tea before it ended. Void Castle, within the enormous palace hall. Dongbua Shui Ying and Primal Chaos Hall Master walked out from the distorted void. Dongbua Shui Ying still had a look of unwillingness. These destruction devils are indeed cunning. The moment Primal Chaos Hall Master acted, they did not hesitate to escape. Dongbua Shui Ying shook his head unwillingly. He had carefully prepared himself and even unleashed all of his abilities. In order to capture all of them in one fell swoop, he had even invited the Master of Chaos Temple to attack together with him. The Master of Chaos Temple had also agreed to it. According to the plan, the Master of Chaos Temple would hide in the paradise when they attacked and would only attack at the crucial moment. Unfortunately, the plan could not keep up with the changes. The Destruction Devils were the first to act, forcing Dongbua Shui Ying into a predicament, forcing Primal Chaos Hall Master to appear. I have just killed 2 Black Armor Destruction Devils, and they're already going crazy. Dongbua Shui Ying sighed. I know that there must be someone formidable amongst them. Who would have thought that there are 3 Golden Armor Destruction Devils hidden within? The 3 Golden Armor Destruction Devils were each more ruthless than the other. The strongest Golden Armor Destruction Devil should be at the 9th level Star Pagoda standard. The horn on his forehead shot out, turning into a rolling black flame star that pierced through the void. At that time, Dongbua Shui Ying had unleashed a total of 25 6-petal Boundary Realm Destruction Flowers. Layers of black flower buds were stacked together to trap and seal the Destruction Devil. Nevertheless, under the black star formed by that horn, they were shattered. Naturally, because he was hiding in the illusory realm, the power of the black star was affected. After that, the surface of Dongbua Shui Ying's body let out a golden light. Furthermore, there was a blue light protecting his body. The power of the secret treasure, 3-colored layered cloud, was extraordinary. Under the suppression of the golden light and the distortion of the blue light domain, Dongbua Shui Ying was able to easily parry the greatly weakened black flame star with a single palm. That black star rapidly retreated after its attack failed. This also allowed Dongbua Shui Ying to witness the combat power of a 9th level Destruction Devil. Compared to it, his Destruction Flowers were still too weak. If there was only one Golden Armor Destruction Devil, he would not have fallen into such a predicament. But the other 2 were both at the peak of the 8th level. Furthermore, the 3 Golden Armor Destruction Devils were able to coordinate perfectly. When the 3 of them worked together, it was equivalent to 3 9th level Star Pagoda experts. Under their collaboration, the first move had practically forced Dongbua Shui Ying into a predicament. It seemed that Dongbua Shui Ying could only rely on his defenses to resist against it. At this moment, Primal Chaos Hall Master, who was hiding in the Eden treasure brought by Dongbua Shui Ying, acted. The moment he acted, it was world-shaking. Primal Chaos Hall Master was famous. Amongst those at the 9th level Star Pagoda strength, he had lived for a very long time and was highly respected. His combat power was indeed abnormally horrifying. Dongbua Shui Ying had long known that Primal Chaos All-Master was considered to be at the peak of Primal Chaos realm. He estimated that Black Emperor might be able to fight against him. He used the title Primal Chaos, and many cultivators believed in him. This time, Dongbua Shui Ying finally experienced his true strength. This was a strength that could allow him to survive even when fighting against Cosmos gods. If one were to say that the Black Star executed by the Golden Armored Destruction Devil was at the true 9th level power, then when Primal Chaos Hall Master rotated his hands, the void was torn apart into Primal Chaos. That Black Star was torn apart, causing a single horn to appear. That single horn naturally turned into a golden light and escaped. Primal Chaos. The 3 Golden Armored Destruction Devils were greatly alarmed when they saw this. They did not hesitate to escape. Within the enormous palace hall, Dongbua Shui Ying and Primal Chaos Hall Master were walking side by side. Primal Chaos Hall Master chuckled. This team is quite formidable. 3 Golden Armored Destruction Devils, 1 at the 9th level and 2 at the peak of the 8th level. Their teamwork is even more amazing. If they are lucky, they might be able to kill one of their Primal Chaos existences. Amen, Dongbua Shui Ying agreed. It was extremely difficult to kill a Primal Chaos giant. Dongbua Shui Ying was confident of himself. In addition to the help from Primal Chaos Hall Master, the 2 of them sufficed. If it were some weaker Primal Chaos existences, usually 7 to 8 of them would work together. They might even work together with arrays and protective treasures. Even if they met with danger, the Void Castle would send out more experts to support them. Hence, even if Dongbua Shui Ying met a slightly stronger team, he had to be lucky before he could kill a Primal Chaos existence. The moment you appeared, they immediately escaped. Dongbua Shui Ying chuckled. He had already walked with Primal Chaos Hall Master to where the group of experts in the Great Void Heaven Temple were chatting. Haha, Dongbua. Inquisitive Sky Hall Master who was seated there said, Primal Chaos Hall Master has been fighting for a long time, and those Destruction Devils are already afraid of you. Even though there are some Golden Armored Destruction Devils at the 9th level, none of them could fight against Primal Chaos Hall Master. Even if their Cosmos gods appeared, Primal Chaos Hall Master could still resist for some time. They escaped the moment they saw me. They are good at escaping too, and it is hard for them to kill a single Golden Armored Destruction Devil. Primal Chaos Hall Master shook his head. Amen. I've only killed 2 Black Armor Destruction Devils this time. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded in agreement. You killed 2? And at the Black Armored rank? That's very amazing. Including those from the Great Void Heaven Temple and the other Primal Chaos existences who heard it, they were all praising. When both parties fought, it was rare for the cultivators to die since the inner region was their home ground. But the Destruction Devils had similarly gained experience. It was relatively easier to kill those at the Gray Armored rank, and it was possible for them to encounter them by relying on their incarnations to roam the outer region. But it was harder to kill the Black Armored rank Destruction Devils. Once their team worked together, even their incarnations could not eliminate them. The 3 Golden Armored Destruction Devils are leading a group of Black Armored Destruction Devils primarily for the sake of tempering those Black Armor Destruction Devils. Primal Chaos Hall Master said, tempering oneself through battles and experiencing some dangers are beneficial to the Destruction Devils. If they kill us cultivators, it will be of greater help to them, and they will gradually become stronger. Dongbua, your illusory realm is sufficiently formidable. It caused one of their Golden Armored rank to fall for it, causing them to make a mistake when saving the Black Armored rank. That was why you could kill 2 Black Armored rank Destruction Devils. Primal Chaos Hall Master said, after this, they should be more guarded against you. It will be harder for you to kill 2 more Black Armor Destruction Devils. Amen, Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. During the killing, there would be an unseen, unique energy being absorbed by his soul. It felt similar to absorbing Origin World rocks, just that the effect was better. It should be comparable to absorbing more than 100 Origin World rocks. Xiao. The 3 Golden Armored Destruction Devils directly arrived at the Lost World Corridor. They stepped onto one of the spatial corridors with great familiarity. The three of them walked side by side, and the leading one was a single-horned, silver-eyed destruction devil. He muttered, "This time, we should have met that genius cultivator recorded in the intelligence, Dongbua Shui Ying, who has reached the 7th level strength at the Unity Realm. He is also the Mirage Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Currently, he is very strong, especially with his illusory realm technique. Those who are slightly weaker would easily fall for it. Fong, you have fallen for it this time. Amen. It is I who was slower by a step and suffered a loss." A rather ugly golden-armored devil with a huge head, a bloody mouth, and several rows of teeth said in a deep voice. His offensive power is ordinary, and his threat level isn't high. But with this illusory realm technique, his threat level can be judged at the initial 9th level. The single-horned, silver-eyed destruction devil said. If not for his illusory realm technique, according to their judgment, Dongbua Shui Ying's threat level would not be at the 9th level. If not for that primal chaos appearing, we might be able to eliminate that Dongbo Hall Master if we work together. That's right. Primal chaos has a threat level of above the 9th level. He is indeed terrifying. This is the 2nd time I met him. On the side of the cultivators, there are a total of 5 who reached the 9th level, and this is including 2 cosmos gods. This time we met one. The 3 of them traveled in the Lost World corridor. Their moods weren't good. The Destruction Devils had their own criteria for judging the cultivators. Amongst the cosmos gods, there were 2 who were determined to be above the 9th level. Caven, there was 1 today. Chapter 962. Deep within the Lost World corridor, within a hidden space. Within a tranquil ice palace hall, there were currently 6 figures seated. Their auras were all reserved. Some were wearing black scales, some were violet, and some were wearing robes commonly seen by cultivators. 2 of them even had the appearance of a human. Little sister Shui Yong, why did you summon us over? Those fools are led by you, little sister Shui Yong. There are some matters that you can decide yourself, and there's no need to find us. The other 5 figures were very casual. They did not have the wicked aura that ordinary destruction devils had. Furthermore, as long as they changed their appearances, it would be hard for others to recognize them. A girl covered in snow-white scales chuckled. This little sister knows that fellow brothers are focused on cultivation and do not care about the matters of those fools. But there is indeed a huge matter that I have to tell fellow brothers. Oh, the other 5 stared at the white-scaled woman. Fellow brothers should know that our 8th golden-armored lair is a newly developed lair. Currently, the first batch of golden armor destruction devils is being nurtured. The snow-white armored girl said, Amen. Those fools who could not escape from the control of the supreme law and are often controlled by the desire to slaughter. What is there to mention about them? A black-robed young man casually fanned himself with a feather fan before sneering. Within the first batch of golden armor destruction devils being nurtured in the 8th golden armored lair, there is one who is very unique. We can determine that he has the shadowless talent. The snow-white armored girl chuckled as she spoke. She casually swept her gaze across the other 5. Just as she expected, the other 5 destruction devils who reached the cosmos god level became quiet. Shadowless talent? They looked at the snow-white armored girl. Quick, let's go. It is actually the shadowless talent. Quick, little sister Shui Yong, don't lie to us. They were all excited. Why would I lie about such a huge matter? Go, fellow brothers, let's go and have a look. The snow-white armored girl chuckled. The 6 of them turned into a faint light with a sough. They rapidly left this space. Even though they were traveling through the spatial corridor, they would occasionally sough by relying on the ripples in the spatial corridor to disappear. Even though it was easy to get lost in the spatial corridor, and one might be teleported into the lost region. But amidst the countless dangers, there were some ripples that could teleport through space. The destruction devils were too familiar with the Lost World corridor. This was their home, and they could easily teleport through space. In just half a day, these 6 cosmos god destruction devils arrived at a spatial lair. There were many blood-armored destruction devils patrolling the surrounding regions of this spatial lair. There were even several golden-armored destruction devils who were hiding their strength patrolling the area. Even if the incarnations of cosmos gods got close to this region, it was hard for them to get close to the golden-armored graded lair without being discovered. Besides, the entrance of the golden armor nest was disguised as a closed state, which made it even more difficult to find. If one wanted to find a golden armor grade lair, they would need some luck to arrive at one of the few golden armor grade lairs in the vast Lost World corridor. Secondly, he had to be strong enough to evade the surrounding blood-armored destruction devils and golden armored destruction devils from patrolling. Third, they could confirm that there was something strange about that space, and that they could break through the disguise of the lair's entrance. Only by doing all three would there be a chance of finding a golden armored lair. Of course, this was under normal circumstances. If it was Myriad Realm Tavern Master, Mount Chime, or Donghua Shuang, their incarnations would be able to carry out ultra-long distance teleportation. Even if they did not enter, they would still be able to peek through the black fog spherical holes. Whoosh! The 6 kings entered. Within the lair space, there is also a golden armored destruction devil stationed here. He stood silently on a mountain peak like a sculpture. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked towards the distance, seeing the 6 kings who came. King, this golden armored destruction devil immediately flew over and bowed respectfully. They were born for the sake of annihilation. Not just the lowest graded gray armor destruction devils or the powerful golden armor destruction devils. All of them had a strong desire to slaughter. One could say that golden armor destruction devils had better control over their strength, but they would still not be able to resist killing time and time again. Only when they truly broke through the bottleneck of life, breaking out of this cage and reaching the cosmos god level, could they break free from the control of their desires. And this level was also known as King by many destruction devils. Amen. The 6 kings came before the ancient void tree. The entire lair condensed into a single ancient void tree. Being the highest graded destruction devil lair, this ancient void tree was exceptionally exquisite and beautiful. Every single branch was sparkling and translucent. Every branch was formed from space, and the degree of profoundness in the construction of space made even void primogenitor and emperor Jian startled. The 6 kings looked upwards. On the ancient void tree, there were currently 9 golden eggs. Some were on the trunk, and some were on the branches. Some were big, and some were small. The 9 golden eggs had all sorts of strange phenomena. Some golden eggs had flames burning on the surface, and some had violet fog that would occasionally appear and permeate into the eggs. And the smallest one was located at the center of the trunk of the ancient void tree. This smallest golden egg would occasionally turn translucent before disappearing completely, disappearing without a trace. Even the 6 kings present had formidable techniques, yet they could not discover any traces of the golden eggs. This is the shadowless talent? The snow-white armored girl chuckled. The other 5 were both startled and delighted. The destruction devils were different from cultivators. Cultivators had to cultivate step by step from the lowest level. Even void life forms, the strongest void life form was only at the void god origin birth realm. But the destruction devils, even the lowest graded gray armored rank, were at the 1st to 3rd level star pagoda standard. They could fight against Unity realm experts, and the highest golden armored rank was at the 7th floor of Star Tower to the 9th level standard. This was unquestionably at the level of primal chaos realm giants. The moment they were born and matured, they would naturally have such strength. Where did their strength come from? It was purely due to their talent. They had all sorts of talents, and some were extremely strange. But there was a common point: they were all influenced by the desire to slaughter. If they did not break through the level of life and step into the cosmos god realm, they would forever be controlled by the desire to slaughter. But currently, there was no ultra-long distance teleportation among the talents that appeared among the destruction devils. There were also no heaven-defying talents like prophecy or change the past. But there was a talent that the cultivators had never produced before, yet the destruction devils did. This was the shadowless talent. The shadowless talent allowed the cultivator to truly fuse with the void as one. This was fusing with the essence of the black fog sphere. At this moment, it would become part of the essence of the primal chaos void. Under ordinary circumstances, it was impossible to destroy their bodies. If they were to hide, it would be hard to find traces of them. If Donghua Shuang was around, he would understand that this was the perfect pinnacle of the second diagram of Emperor Juyun's 4 diagrams, the voidification theory. But in reality, this did not mean that he was unparalleled. If the third diagram, control of the void, reached the pinnacle, or even broke the cage and touched upon a higher dimension world, he should be able to break through the voidification. That time, Emperor Jiyun had reached the pinnacle of voidification and control of the void. As for the fourth diagram, he could not complete it. Even so, Sacred Master had failed time and time again in trying to kill him. He had even tried using the origin source energy, yet he failed. It was even the final battle. That time, Sacred Master had truly gone mad. He fought until the primitive ancient sacred world shattered. That time, Emperor Juyun suffered a fatal injury. He relied on his heaven-defying void technique to escape. He even left behind treasures and cavern dwelling that no one could snatch away. Even Donghua Shuang could not enter or exit with his ultra-long distance teleportation. One could see how powerful Emperor Jiyun was. And Emperor Jiyun was heavily injured and could only die in the end. But in reality, it was very hard to break through the voidification technique when it reached the pinnacle. Emperor Jiyun was dead. Even though the void primogenitor who walked on another Tao of void might be formidable, his control of the void was relatively weaker. He was lacking in the microscopic aspect and could not even teleport through ultra-long distance. What he did was ultra-long distance, spatial great teleportation, much less refining the void and breaking the cage. Sacred Master might be able to break through it, but he did not participate in the battle. After a moment, that tiny golden egg gradually appeared. It turned from translucent to material. This is the last egg that appeared from the first batch. The snow-white armored girl said, "For the sake of nurturing this egg, we spent a long time." The other 8 eggs grew very slowly. But now this egg has formed. The next step is for it to mature. That will be much faster. 5 billion years should suffice. By then, our destruction devils will have the second one with the shadowless talent. Chapter 963. From nothing to something was the hardest. The moment the egg was successfully nurtured, it would be much simpler for it to grow from small to large, and even hatching. With the shadowless talent, it will be much easier for us. Previously, we have succeeded in sending the kings out several times, all because of General Fu Qian. Previously, there was only General Fu Qian who had the shadowless talent. The moment General Fu Qian fails and dies, we will be doomed. Now that there are 2 of them, the possibility of one of them dying is very low, so there's even less a need to worry about 2 of them. The 6 kings present all looked at the small egg that was gradually becoming translucent. General Fu Qian also had the shadowless talent. The cultivators used the void in the outer region and even the inner region, but it was useless against General Fu Qian. He could stealthily reach the final spatial barrier. Nevertheless, that spatial barrier was the final defensive layer. The cultivators had set up all sorts of techniques to augment the spatial barrier, and even cosmos gods required a relatively long time to break through. General Fu Qian could indeed rely on his talent to permeate through the spatial barrier, but during the process there would be some minute ripples. Clearly, the various techniques of the spatial barrier still had a slight effect on General Fu Qian. This minute ripple would definitely alarm the cultivators if it appeared during ordinary times. Even though the shadowless talent was formidable, the cosmos gods from the cultivators could fight with the sacred master until now. The moment they discovered the techniques of the destruction devils, they should have other methods to deal against the destruction devil who had the talent, but was merely at the primal chaos realm. The destruction devils could not afford to lose. Previously, they did not care about the price to kill their way to the spatial barrier. Under the violent ripples produced from their attacks, the minute ripples that permeated out would naturally be hard to discover. After this brat is born, we can start the next war after he matures and stabilizes his strength. The violet-armored male with wings said, "Currently, 8 of the kings have left the world before. The 3 of us have yet to do so. The few of us need to see the world of the cultivators and absorb the techniques of the cultivators. Who knows, we might be able to break through like Emperor June. Amen. It is time for us to leave. We have been staying in the Lost World Corridor and have only received some cultivation technique from them. We have yet to experience the world of the cultivators. When will we be able to break through? With 2 shadowless talents, it will be much easier to get out." Currently, the Destruction Devils had produced a total of 15 kings. In the early stages, they were slightly weaker, and there were losses and deaths. A total of 4 kings had died. As they gradually became stronger, they teamed up, and it became harder for the cultivators to kill another king. 11 kings. Right now, the 5 of them were all out in the outside world. They disguised themselves and traveled around the outside world, even going so far as to learn various cultivation methods. The other 6 stayed behind to guard the Lost World Corridor. This was a relatively safe force that was needed to stay behind. Unless a new king was born, if a king went out, the kings outside would have to return to replenish their strength. Ensuring the safety of the Lost World Corridor was something they all agreed on. Even though they felt that those destruction devils who were controlled by the desire to slaughter were fools, kings were born from amongst them. As kings, their desires were different from those idiots. They wanted to break free of control and gain control of themselves. They wanted to become stronger, even more powerful. He even became the highest existence in the primal chaos void. Even though they would kill as kings, they did not kill because of the desire to slaughter. Instead, they did so for the sake of unique energy to make themselves stronger. From now on, the few of us will be stationed in the 8th golden armored lair. Before this brat is born, we must ensure the safety of this lair. Right? Don't let it be like the previous 2 golden armored lairs being destroyed. The 6 kings came to a decision at the same time. If it was just a king guarding the lair, it was impossible for them to defend against the cultivators with their true bodies of cosmos gods. But with the 6 of them working together, even though they could not win, they were 100% confident of defending against the invaders. They were also contacting the 5 kings in the outside world to discuss the matter. Very soon, they came to an agreement. After all, after cultivating in the outside world for a long period, other than reaping great benefits at the start, it would become harder to improve further. They were willing to return to the Lost World Corridor occasionally. Time passed. The second destruction devil with the shadowless talent was gradually being nurtured. The 6 kings were protecting it silently. The battle between the cultivators and the destruction devils continued as usual. The destruction devils also came time after time to provoke the cultivators. They did not care about the casualties because their goal was to become stronger. Their final goal was to break free from the control of the desire to slaughter and become a king. The stronger the destruction devils were, the more they hated indulging in their desires. It's just that their desires were too terrifying. Even the strongest golden-armored destruction devils at the 9th level star pagoda strength could only slightly control their desires. They would occasionally vent out their desires. Battle, slaughter, there were casualties, but the number of casualties was still increasing. In the blink of an eye, it had been close to 10 billion years since Dongbua Ying came to the Void Castle to fight. His illusory realm techniques were formidable. During this period of 10 billion years, 5 golden armor destruction devils and more than 100 blood armor destruction devils died in his hands. Because the destruction devils that entered the inner region to fight, even if they were at the golden armored rank, were not as strong as the first time Dongbua Ying met. The first time Dongbua, Shui, Ying met 3 golden armor destruction devils, 1 at the 9th level and 2 at the peak of the 8th level. This was considered a formidable cooperation. Usually, they would not be so strong. He would only meet some at the 7th or 8th level golden armor destruction devils. Dongbua Shui Ying's illusory realm had slightly affected those at the peak of the 8th level. That was why he succeeded in killing 5 golden armor destruction devils in succession. At the same time, when the golden armor destruction devils fell, there was no need to mention the blood armor destruction devils. Even though the destruction devils were more vigilant against Dongbua Shui Ying's illusory realm techniques, they still had to temper themselves. They could bear with some sacrifices. At most, they would be more vigilant and coordinate with the destruction devils that were stronger in terms of the soul. Killing so many destruction devils, the unique energy he absorbed was comparable to 20,000 Origin World rocks. It's a pity that this unique energy could not be sold. Dongbua Shui Ying was still very satisfied. He felt that he would be able to hunt more after cultivating for a longer period of time. Furthermore, as time passed, being the strongest expert in the Tao of Mirage in history, Dongbua Shui Ying's understanding of the Tao of Mirage was slowly increasing. He had also modified the illusory realm world structure at the 9th level of the Cinnabar Inheritance several times. Because the Cinnabar Inheritance was created on one hand, it was to improve his soul, and on the other hand, it was to fuse perfectly with the other 3 great inheritances. The illusory realm world of the inheritance was not considered perfect. It was merely at the 8th level star pagoda strength. One had to know that the 9th sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords was also the final sword at the primal chaos realm. It was at the 9th level star pagoda strength. Naturally, this sword contained part of the great Tao of the cosmos. Actually, currently, if the Tao of Mirage continued improving, it would be developing towards the Mirage cosmos. Every single step would be difficult. The illusory realm world of the Cinnabar Inheritance had been modified by Dongbua Shui Ying several times. It was true that the illusory realm had improved, but it was not a qualitative change. It is too difficult to grasp a 9th level star pagoda technique with just the Tao of Mirage alone. Dongbua Shui Ying understood this point. Comparatively speaking, it should be easier to create the 3rd style of the destruction flower. Within the cultivation room, a layer of black scales appeared on the skin of Dongbua Shui Ying. His palms were covered in black scales that were faintly glowing. The slaughter aura on his body was completely restrained. Clearly, after spending close to 10 billion years in the Void Castle, he had finally cultivated the Imperial Dragon Inheritance to large success, reaching the 9th transformation realm. Both the Tao of Mirage and Tao of Slaughter were sufficient for him to create the 3rd style of the destruction flower. But to succeed, that was extremely difficult. As for the 9th level moves of the Tao of Mirage and the apocalyptic 9th sword of the Tao of Slaughter, they were even more difficult. Actually, in terms of essence, the difficulty was comparable to the 3rd style of the destruction flower. But because Dongbua Shui Ying had the experience of creating the 1st style of the destruction flower at the Unity realm, he had experienced absolute perfection. In addition to the guidance of the stone mirror, the difficulty of creating the 3rd style of the destruction flower was much lower. Chapter 964. Void Castle, within the cultivation room of a small cavern dwelling belonging to Dongbua Shui Ying. Not good. Still not good. The illusory world was beautiful and magnificent. A 9-leafed black flower bud was forming within. Countless veins could be seen on the leaves and petals. Every single vein was being adjusted. Dongbua Shui Ying was doing his best to maintain the black flower bud, yet it still crumbled in the end. I don't have that feeling of perfection. I'm still far from it. Dongbua Shui Ying immediately felt the difficulty of creating the 3rd style of the destruction flower. Even though creating the destruction flower at the Unity realm was comparable to creating the 3rd style at the primal chaos realm. Based on his current foundation at the primal chaos realm, his current realm was much higher than when he was at the Unity realm. He had to fuse them perfectly and reach absolute perfection. Only when he achieved perfection would he be qualified to be called a ninth-level killing technique. The current him. If he were to attempt the ninth level of Star Pagoda, he could get through without relying on the secret treasure, the three-colored layered cloud. He would have to rely on his own defensive techniques. Firstly, he had reached large success in the Imperial Dragon inheritance. Secondly, he had the voidification to assist him. Furthermore, he could hide in the illusory world. Only with the combination of these three did his defensive techniques qualify to be at the ninth level. If he were to include his secret treasures, his defenses would likely be ranked in the top 5 among primal chaos experts. But his offensive capabilities were weak. The second style of the destruction flower, even if he could unleash 30 flowers at once, it was still lacking compared to the golden armored destruction devils at the ninth level. There was no need to talk about comparing it to Primal Chaos Hall Master or Xinghua Emperor. Xinghua Emperor was most famous for his offensive techniques. One could guess what he specialized in from the two words Xinghua. He was known for being cruel and tyrannical. It feels chaotic. The more profound mysteries I fuse in, the harder it becomes. Dongbua Shui Ying felt vexed in his heart, because he could not even touch the edge of the technique. He only felt that the technique he conceived did not have any sense of beauty at all. It was a failure everywhere. Dongbua Shui Ying closed his eyes, allowing his heart to gradually calm down. No rush. I can't be too hasty. Compared to the ninth level Dao of Mirage Technique, I don't even have a concept for it, and my foundation is lacking. The third style of the Destruction Flower has at least sufficient foundation, and I have many inspirational ideas. Shui Ying thought. As for all the failures, this is ultimately a ninth level technique. Even geniuses cannot create a ninth level technique so quickly. Among the other two Unity Realm Level 7 experts in the history of the 6 sacred grounds, Heart Imitation Religious Master's cultivation speed was slower. It was mainly because he had created the Heart Imitation cultivation system. On the other hand, Great Emperor Genie's cultivation speed was relatively faster. He reached the peak of the 8th level in 8 billion years. After tempering himself through battles, he was able to get through the 9th level Star Pagoda level in 50 billion years. However, Great Emperor Genie had truly created a 9th level domain technique. Even opponents at the 9th level would have a hard time touching him in his domain. Of course, Great Emperor Genie was an ancient cultivator. Ancient cultivators didn't need to fully comprehend it. They just needed to be able to use it. The difficulty was much simpler than Dongbua Shui Ying's laws of profound mysteries. But it was undeniable that the other party had created a 9th level technique just 50 billion years after reaching the primal chaos realm. Genie Emperor. That cultivation speed in the past had even led cosmos gods to believe that Great Emperor Gene might be able to step into the final realm. However, after so many years, he was still only at the 9th level. In terms of cultivation speed, only the Sword Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple could be considered an extremely monstrous talent, advancing by leaps and bounds. There's no need to compete with Genie Great Emperor. After all, most of the 9th level experts like Xinghua Emperor had to cultivate for countless years to master the techniques of the 9th level. Dongbua Shui Ying calmed himself down and continued his cultivation. The cultivators and the destruction devils faced each other from afar. Both parties clashed time after time in the inner and outer region. Kill. A battle broke out and ended at the edge of the inner area. The team of destruction devils fled in a sorry state. General M.O. Gu. When is the next operation? The escaping team returned to the Lost World Corridor. There were 3 golden armor destruction devils walking side by side. One of them was tall and thin. His entire body was covered in golden scales. His head was also covered in golden scales. 3 black curved horns were pointing forward, and there was some light flowing on his scaled skin. It was faintly discernible. He was none other than General M.O. Gu. Retreat. I'll let other teams move with me the next time. General M.O. Gu's eyes were filled with violet light as he swept across the 2 by the side. Yes. Of these two golden armor destruction devils, one was at the 9th level, and the other was at the peak of the 8th level. General Mo Gu was clearly at the peak of the 7th level, yet the two of them were extremely respectful. Because the kings had given strict orders, General Mo Gu had a status equivalent to General Fu Qian and was above all other golden armor destruction devils. Only the kings were qualified to order them. So, General Mo Gu walked within the Lost World corridor. His speed was extremely fast, and he was even piercing through space-time after time. Nevertheless, there was a violet-armored winged male following behind him soundlessly. He was one of the 6 kings and specialized in escaping. During this period, he had been protecting General Mo Gu in the dark. Mo Gu. The eyes of the violet-armored winged male were filled with expectations. It's about time. We just need him to send us out. He doesn't have to be too strong. We just have to temper him a little more before we can set off. The world of cultivators. I'm really looking forward to it. To the kings. General Mo Gu and General Fu Qian were of great use to them, and that was why they paid special attention to them. They even disregarded their identities and personally protected them in the dark. As for the other destruction devils, they were much colder. They still paid special attention to the golden armor destruction devils, since they would at least be the main fighting force when fighting against the cultivators in the future. Furthermore, it was possible for a new king to emerge from them. As for those at the lower levels, they were ants. No matter how many died, they were too lazy to care. Currently, a total of 8 golden armored graded layers have been produced. 2 have been destroyed by the cultivators, leaving 6 remaining. These 6 layers have given birth to 2 destruction devils with the shadowless talent. They are also continuously producing golden armored destruction devils. The violet armored winged male paid special attention to the golden armored graded layers because he was born from one of them. The golden armored graded layers are more tightly guarded, and the chances of being discovered are lower. As long as there are more golden armored graded layers, our destruction devils will become stronger. We will be able to produce more golden armored destruction devils with the shadowless talent and more kings. The violet armored winged male thought. Compared to the cultivators, they were ultimately the weaker side. There was still a gap in their overall strength. Even when they entered the world of cultivators, they had to be sneaky and did not dare to fight directly. Fortunately, they were born with great survival capabilities. Even if they could not win, they could still escape. Hence, the cultivators could only watch as the destruction devils became stronger. Lost World Corridor. The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was currently walking on the dazzling spatial corridor. In his eyes, everything around him was displaying all sorts of profound mysteries of the void. This was truly a holy ground for cultivating the void. Amen? The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was suddenly startled. He was instinctively observing his surroundings through the most fundamental black fog, spherical holes of the void. Even if he did not have to deal with those patrolling destruction devils and did not have to unravel all sorts of concealment techniques, he could simply observe through the black fog spherical holes. But the Lost World Corridor was simply too big. Over the past 10 billion years, he had only found 26 blood-armored, graded layers. In terms of efficiency, he was slightly lower than Mount Chimay in the past. That was right, too. Mount Chimay had a complete inheritance. Not only could his incarnations teleport through an ultra-long distance, he even had avatar techniques. It was normal for him to be more formidable than him in terms of scouting. This is the black-robed Dongbua Shui did not dare to believe it. Who? He took a step, causing the space ahead to distort. He was directly teleported to a sealed space that was very close to that layer. He peeked again at an extremely close distance. Through the countless black fog spherical holes, he could clearly see a lair not far away. There was an incomparably beautiful void ancient tree there, as well as a total of 9 golden eggs. Golden armored graded lair? Dongbua Shui Ying's heart could not help but speed up. He carefully observed. That's right, the color of those eggs was golden. His current state was low. He hoped that he would be able to adjust his state of mind after today. Chapter 965. Dongbua Shui Ying held his breath. He carefully scrutinized everything within the golden-armored, grated lair. A golden-armored, grated lair signified that it could produce an endless stream of golden-armored destruction devils. The longer it existed, the more golden-armored destruction devils a lair could produce. The cultivators even suspected that the cosmos god-level destruction devils should have broken through from the golden-armored, grated destruction devils. In reality, the Lost World Corridor had produced a total of 15 kings over the long years. Other than 2 golden-armored grated lairs which were destroyed during the early stages, there were only 6 remaining golden-armored grated lairs. One could deduce how many kings a golden-armored grated lair would have. Over time, the golden-armored grated lair would produce even more. In other words, a golden-armored grated lair would produce at least 2 kings on average, and there would be more as time passed. Hence, as the war progressed, the number of kings on the side of the destruction devils would increase, and the number of destruction devils would become more frightening. The cultivators would undoubtedly lose. I've finally discovered a golden-armored grated lair. Dongbua Shui Ying felt both excited and excited. Even though the cultivators were not certain of the value of the golden-armored grated lair, they had already publicly announced a bounty. As long as the incarnations of the cultivators could find a golden-armored grated lair and report upwards, they would be rewarded with a huge sum of 100,000 Origin World rocks. Hence, many incarnations of the cultivators would head to the Lost World Corridor to try their luck. It was to the extent that Mount Chime had offered such a high price in the past, and the cultivators had even endured it. Their main motive was to destroy the golden-armored grated lair. It's a pity that Mount Chime was too greedy. As long as they want to search for it, they would have to pay 10,000 Origin World rocks every 100 million years. A golden-armored grated lair without any cash would still cost so much. If it was 10 billion years, that would be a total of 1 million Origin World rocks. It was fine if they could gain something, but if they did not, they would have to pay such a huge sum of Origin World rocks. Even cosmos gods could not afford it. Amen? Dongbua Shui Ying's gaze was soon attracted by that ancient void tree. Because he was peering through the black fog spherical hole, he could clearly see the structure of the ancient void tree. His use of the void is too perfect. Dongbua Shui Ying praised. The Lost World Corridor can be considered a holy land for void cultivation, and the Golden Armored Lair is the holy land of holy lands. Swoosh! On that day, Dongbua Shui Ying sent his second incarnation into the Lost World Corridor to continue searching for the demon lair. As for his first incarnation, he cultivated alone in the sealed space for a long period of time, spying on the golden-armored ancient void tree. Actually, strictly speaking, Emperor Jiyun's 4 diagrams absolute art, the walker's hidden secret, and the void ancient tree all had different uses for the void. But even though they were in different directions, they could still learn from each other. As for the report, there's no hurry. I'll wait until the ancient void tree is no longer of much use to me. Dongbua Shui Ying thought to himself. Although the void ancient tree was also breeding demons, the birth of golden-armored demons was extremely slow. There were 9 eggs in a batch, and after the 9 eggs were bred, the next batch of golden-armored demons would need tens of billions of years to form golden eggs. The higher the talent, the longer it would take. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it had been 21 billion years since Dongbua Shui Ying came to the Void Castle. Within the enormous palace hall of the Void Castle. What? The primal chaos incarnations who were originally either chatting about Tao or staying by themselves, and several hundred primal chaos experts suddenly stood up. They were looking at the enormous scene that was projected by the boundary of the palace hall. The place was constantly displaying the movements of the destruction devils detected from the outer region and inner region. But at this moment, a large number of light spots appeared at the boundary at the same time. After that, they entered the inner region and were flying at high speed in the direction of the spatial barrier. With the eyesight of Dongbua Shui Ying and the others, They were able to deduce that there were a total of 3,000 light spots just by looking at them. They are attacking the spatial barrier again. All the primal chaos existences felt their hearts tightening. Usually, they would provoke and kill at the boundary. For them to enter deep into the inner region was clearly for the sake of the final spatial barrier. So. Within the enormous palace hall, many figures appeared one after another. The surrounding space was even distorting and collapsing. Many terrifying existences walked out from within. They were so powerful that even Donghua, Shui, Ying, and the others were horrified. Other than the Void Castle, it was too difficult to see so many cosmos gods at once, and to see their true bodies. Just a breath of time later, a total of 12 cosmos gods descended. They rushed over from their respective locations. One had to know that the majority of them did not know how to teleport through ultra-long distance. They had to get their subordinates to open up an ultra-long distance teleportation tunnel. Even so, they arrived within a breath of time. Donghua Shui carefully looked at them. He had never seen many cosmos gods before. His teacher, Void Primogenitor, was a black-robed, green-haired male. His eyes were gentle and filled with love for the masses. He glanced at Donghua Shui before turning to the other cosmos gods. They are going to attack the spatial barrier once again. More than half of the final realm existences in the primal chaos void and 5 great sacred worlds were gathered here. All of them had a grand and unfathomable aura, of which there was a male who had many shackles revolving around his body, Wu Zhu. Wu Zhu solemnly said at this moment, "Even though they have failed many times previously, we cannot be careless every single time. As long as we fail once and the spatial barrier is broken, things will be bad for us. Amen. Then shall we deal with them according to the old method?" A huge giant that seemed to be formed from black rocks stood there. He coldly said. No one present objected. "Then let's act." The thin and small Jiezu, who was still wearing a green robe, directly said. In the ancient sacred world, steam rose from the huge bathing pool. Sacred Master was immersed in the bath water. He sat by the side of the pool. Suddenly, he felt something and looked in the direction of the Lost World corridor. Even though the ancient sacred world was endlessly far away from the Lost World corridor, Sacred Master looked from afar with a strange grin on his face. These devils are going to sneak into the 5 great sacred worlds again? Their numbers are increasing, and the number of kings emerging is increasing too. The time given to me is getting lesser and lesser. There is also that old fellow causing trouble for me. Sacred Master softly shook his head. He then closed his eyes and continued soaking in a bath. Primal Chaos Void, Heaven Green World. The Heaven Green World was one of the small remnant pieces left after the primitive ancient sacred world shattered. It was far less vast than the 9-cloud Great Land, and should only be 1/100th the size of the 9-cloud Great Land. And currently, the Heaven Green World was occupied by Mount Chime. Humph. They're attacking the spatial barrier again. Mount Chime stood at the peak of a tall mountain. He had a pair of scarlet eyebrows, and his eyes were cold. He should be considered the most arrogant amongst the 9th-level Star Pagoda experts. He even disdained some of the cosmos gods, because even cosmos gods who were high above would face the danger of dying when facing Sacred Master. But he was different. He had cultivated avatars that could teleport through ultra-long distances. His avatars were hidden, and nobody could find them. Even Sacred Master was not willing to become enemies with the lineage of Myriad Realm Tavern Master. Enemies that could not be killed were the hardest to deal with. Very good. The Destruction Devils are attacking time after time, and those cosmos gods will feel threatened. Mount Chime thought they will become more and more anxious. There will be a day when they agree to my request. Cosmos gods sought his help, but Mount Chime's request was relatively high, and both parties had yet to reach an agreement. This is a rare opportunity for me to obtain a large number of Origin World rocks. Mount Chime was not anxious. He believed that the cosmos gods would eventually agree to his request. As for offending those cosmos gods, he did not care. Chapter 966. The second chapter, by the boundary of the void in the inner region. Xiao, a destruction devil, was originally flying at high speed. Suddenly, his body turned into more than 100 blood streams of light. They separated and moved forward. The majority of them were still rushing towards the spatial barrier. Exterminate! A cold roar reverberated in the void. Streams of water were surging in the void. As they came in contact with those blood streams of light, they were rapidly extinguished. Nonetheless, the blood streams of light had already separated into more than 100 streams of light, and they were very far away from each other. This huge area of effect technique could only cover a dozen of the nearest bloodstreams of light. Damn! A silver-robed male stood in midair frowning. This destruction devil isn't fighting at all. He has already escaped in different directions. Unless we exterminate all the streams of light, we can't kill him at all. If we don't kill him, we can't ascertain if he's bringing along those cosmos gods. The same situation was happening in other places. On the side of the cultivators, the incarnations of the primal chaos experts were rushing to different places. Even those who were strong, like Primal Chaos Hall Master, had sent more than one incarnation. The destruction devils moved alone. Even though they were weak, they had already split into more than 100 streams of light, and it was hard to kill them all. Set. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying stood in the primal chaos void looking at the flying bloodstream of light. The illusory realm descended, and that bloodstream of light stopped moving. The illusory realm directly targeted the soul. The destruction devils had split into more than 100 streams of light. But as long as a single stream of light fell into the illusory realm, it would be equivalent to all of them falling into the illusory realm, and their souls would fall into oblivion. These are the faster cannon fodder chosen. Even though it was just an incarnation of Dongbua Shuiying, the illusory realm he created was sufficient. This isn't it. Completely immersed in the illusory realm, Dongbua Shuiying easily guided the other party's soul to collapse, causing the death of this destruction devil. Die. Xinghua Emperor directly flicked out a clump of flames. This clump of scarlet flames clashed onto one of the escaping streams of light, causing that stream of light to tremble and stop. It condensed into a blood destruction devil that howled in agony. Both his eyes were burning with flames, and in the blink of an eye, he died. To deal with these streams of light escaping in all directions of the primal chaos giants, only a few dozen could deal against them by relying on their incarnations. There were even cosmos gods who were doing their best to act. Nevertheless, many of these destruction devils were at the strength of the 6th floor of Star Tower. The illusory realm unleashed by Dongbua Shuiying's incarnation was too weak, and it was hard for Dongbua Shuiying to eliminate those with strong heart temperament. Furthermore, there were even golden-armored destruction devils amidst the disguised destruction devils. Even Xinghua Emperor, heart imitation religious master, and the others couldn't kill him with just their incarnations. As for his real body, cosmos gods had already given a strict order. Primal chaos giants were forbidden from participating in the battle with their true bodies, because the true main force of the destruction devils was hidden amidst the many cannon fodders. That main force had cosmos god existences, and not just one. If he sent his true body, it was very likely that he would die. There's nothing we can do. The white-robed Dongbua Shuiying stood in the void. The remaining cannon fodders were decreasing, and it was getting harder to deal with them, especially the dozens of golden-armored destruction devils. Because all of their bodies were escaping in different directions, it was hard for the true body of a cosmos god to kill them all. Only Wuzu and Jade Light Master had the means to do so. A terrifying tremor spread over, causing the body of Dongbua Shuiying to tremble. He immediately turned over. In the distance, a black thunder tore through the region spanning 1 trillion kilometers. It was savage and ugly, bringing with it a horrifying and wicked destructive aura. It is a cosmos god from the destruction devil race. Dongbua Shuiying immediately deduced. Home! Home! They were clashing in the distance. Donghua Shuang felt his heart relaxing. Clearly, the cosmos gods on his side had discovered the main force of the destruction devils. When the battle began, the main force of the destruction devils would usually consist of several cosmos gods. If there were just one or two of them, they would be killed by the cultivators. Only when there were several of them could they resist against the cultivators. So powerful. The remnant shockwave in the distance made Donghua Shuang speechless. A dazzling sword light spread across 1,000,000,000,000 kilometers. Donghua Shuang could recognize that it was the final sword of the less than 13 apocalyptic swords. A sky-shaking roar caused the soul of Donghua Shuang to tremble. He had a feeling that even with the defenses of his body, which he was proud of, he would die instantly if his true body went over. This roar gave him a feeling of threat beyond that of the 13 apocalyptic swords. Ding-dang, a sweet melody reverberated in the void. An enormous bird was howling furiously. Many black shackles that represented evil were like dragons and snakes, 12 cosmos gods. Donghua Shuang thought, of which there are Wu Zu, Blade Emperor, Jiezu, and several other existences who are second only to the Sacred Master. If they join hands to attack me, I'm afraid that their might is not too far off from the battle that destroyed the primitive ancient sacred world. His survival capabilities were not bad, but he could only deal with third-level cosmos gods. If he were to face against Wu Zu, Blade Emperor, Jiezu, Jade Light Master, and others, he would likely be slaughtered. Furthermore, they were currently working together. If he, Donghua Shuang, went over with his true body, the remnant shockwaves from the battle would likely kill him. Void Castle, within a huge palace hall. Donghua Shuang, Xinghua Emperor, Primal Chaos Hall Master, Heart Imitation Religious Master, and several hundred other Primal Chaos existences were currently here. Even within the Void Castle, they could feel the horrifying disturbance from the battle happening in the distance. If it were a one-on-one, I could still deal with some of the weaker cosmos gods. Primal Chaos Hall Master shook his head as he sensed the battle from afar. Wu Zu and the others are indeed experts who could fight against the Sacred Master head-on. This disturbance, this power, the moment I felt it, I no longer have the will to fight. We are ultimately at the Primal Chaos realm. Xinghua Emperor said, it is ultimately the cosmos gods that decide the fate of many cultivators. Heart Imitation Religious Master added, even though all of them were saying so, in their hearts, they desired to step into the cosmos god realm. Donghua Shuang might be standing there, but in reality, he was watching the battle through the black fog spherical hole. Because the battle was too violent, the core region of the battle had long been distorted, and he could not see it clearly. He could only observe from afar. The most dazzling one on the battlefield was naturally Wu Zu. Wu Zu had a total of 9 terrifying incarnations, and his true body was even more frightening. Every single roar he made shook the world. Jiezu was the opposite. He was thin and small, yet he would often grab some scales and flesh before stuffing them into his mouth. Jade Light Master was the most beautiful when she fought. She was playing her zither, causing melodious sounds to reverberate in the void. Judging from the battle, the cultivators held an absolute advantage. They were completely suppressing the destruction devils. The destruction devils would occasionally send out some wicked lightning or some venomous snakes that wanted to bite the cosmos gods on the side of the cultivators. But any one of the 9 incarnations of Wu Zu could easily grab hold of the venomous snakes and eat them. Today's second night was over. MN star. Chapter 967. Within the Void Castle, all primal chaos existences could only wait. Donghua Shuang stood silently within the huge palace hall. Looking at the blurred figures reflected on the mirror-like walls, he shook his head slightly. Regardless of whether it was the battle that caused the destruction of the primitive ancient sacred world, or the other wars started by Sacred Master, or this time when they fought against the destruction devils, it was ultimately the cosmos gods who decided the outcome of the war. These primal chaos existences could only watch from the side. A single Blade Emperor or Ancestor Sorcerer could kill all of them at the primal chaos realm by themselves. This was the difference in quality. South Dongbua Shuang, Xinghua Emperor, Hard Imitation Religious Master, and several hundred other primal chaos existences turned over at the same time. A hunchbacked old man appeared within the palace hall. He was Forefather Tianyu. Forefather Tianyu swept his gaze across all primal chaos existences present before chuckling. All right, those destruction devils have either died in battle or escaped back. Currently, there are no longer any destruction devils left in the inner region. This crisis has been resolved. Huh, I knew it. Those destruction devils are simply a joke, no matter how they struggle. At that moment, the place was filled with laughter. Forefather Tianyu softly nodded. His figure then blurred before disappearing. Dongbua Shuang watched as this happened. He found it hard to relax. Dongbua, let's go and have a few cups of wine. Xinghua Emperor walked over with a smile. The matter has been resolved, yet you are still frowning. What are you thinking about? Nothing much. Come, let's drink. Dongbua Shuang immediately revealed a grin, though he was sighing inwardly. Attack? It was the destruction devils who took the initiative to attack. Retreat? It was the destruction devils who took the initiative to retreat. Within another tranquil palace hall within the Void Castle, the 12 cosmos gods were seated. Their expressions were ugly. The last one, who called himself Emperor June, is comparable to me in strength. Blade Emperor coldly stated as he sat there. The destruction devils are innately good at survival. Even though these cosmos god destruction devils are far weaker than us, we have fought for more than 4 hours without killing a single one. Devil Mountain Primogenitor sighed. We can't kill them. As time passes, more cosmos gods will emerge from the destruction devils. And this time, the one called Emperor June has reached the 2nd level of cosmos god. The situation is getting worse. Yes, the situation is getting worse. Those present were all cosmos gods who decided the fate of the entire primal chaos void. Yet at this moment, they felt helpless. Kill. Unkillable. The destruction devils were clearly becoming stronger at a rapid pace. Even though more experts would emerge from the side of the cultivators as time passed. However, it was very normal for cultivators to nurture experts. As for the destruction devils, as the number of layers increased, the number of destruction devils they produced would become more and more exaggerated. The destruction devils would continuously become stronger, approaching the cultivators and even surpassing them. He could only watch helplessly as everything happened, but he was powerless to do anything. It is still too early. If they want to grow to a strength comparable to ours, they will still need a long time. Wuzu nonchalantly said, during this process, we will also do our best to slow down the growth of the destruction devils. As long as we have sufficient time, all sorts of miracles might happen. Even if we fail in the end, we will just follow the great apocalypse of the primal chaos void. Haha, at most, it will just be a great apocalypse. We still have sufficient time. Reaching this realm in cultivation, everyone could naturally accept everything calmly. These destruction devils have attacked the spatial barrier many times. Jiezu rubbed his thin and small chin, muttering, but every single time, they did not use their full strength. Amen. Right? They did not use their full strength. Just like that Emperor June, he did not act at the start. He only acted at the later stages. They did not send many weak destruction devils to their deaths. If they were to use their full strength, they could send 10 times or more destruction devils to confuse us. The difficulty for us to find their main force would skyrocket, and they could easily reach the spatial barrier. Everyone present agreed that the destruction devils did not use their full strength. Jiezu continued. They did not use their full strength, yet they attacked the spatial barrier multiple times. What is the reason for that? I have previously guessed that they are investigating the spatial barrier. But is it because of the spatial barrier every single time? Furthermore, We have discovered traces of destruction devils hiding in the primal chaos void and 5 great sacred worlds. Clearly, the destruction devils have already passed through the spatial barrier and headed to the 5 great sacred worlds. How do they do so? My guess is that it should be during the time when they attacked the spatial barrier. I suspect so too, Wuzu said, but I have checked and reinforced the spatial barrier many times, yet I have yet to discover any signs of them penetrating through. Unless there are destruction devils who could teleport through an ultra-long distance? Ancestor Bone muttered. Impossible. If they could teleport through an ultra-long distance, they would not need to waste time with us here. They would have long killed their way to the 5 great sacred worlds. Amen. They should have a unique method to penetrate through the spatial barrier. They were pondering. The cultivators were in a slightly worse mood. They had long suspected that there was a problem with the destruction devils attacking the spatial barrier and within the Lost World corridor. Aha! The 5 kings were currently within a luxurious palace. They were drinking and chatting happily. Seated at the center was a thin male with a long scaled tail. His tail was divided into many segments, and his tail wrapped around his seat twice. He was the strongest expert from the current destruction devils, Emperor June. Those cultivators are still foolishly fighting against us. They do not know that when my palm struck the spatial barrier, I have already sent the 3 kings out. The shadowless talent is indeed formidable. This palm of mine has only affected General Mo Gu, yet he isn't injured at all. They were praising and even feeling slightly envious. This shadowless talent was theoretically the pinnacle of voidification. It could practically penetrate through all restrictions, barriers, and seals. Similarly, it was hard for others to injure them. The moment they turned voidified, they could not be seen at all. Who would have thought that Big Brother Emperor June has returned this time, too? Haha, with Big Brother Emperor June around, it'll be much easier for us to deal against those cultivators. Emperor June, who was seated there, his long tail that was revolving around his seat was also moving slowly. He chuckled. This time, the other 3 kings have gone out too. All the kings have gone out before. For a relatively long period, we won't be in a rush to start another war. Everyone should calm down and properly cultivate. We must also have sufficient patience to slowly accumulate the strength of our destruction devils. Amen. The other 4 present nodded in agreement. In the following years, Dongbo Shuang spent most of his time cultivating and searching for new golden-armored graded layers in the Lost World corridor. He would occasionally fight in the inner region too. In the blink of an eye, another 300 million years passed. 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. In a slightly more desolate region, there was a flourishing city. This was the territory of a primal chaos giant, Jade Light Empress. Jade Light Empress opened a religion here and imparted to her disciples. She even constructed a huge city that could shelter many cultivators. Over the long years, Jade Light Empress was absolutely an old ancestor. Many nations had pledged their allegiance to her, and only outstanding talents were qualified to become her disciple. Empress, Empress. Within the God Palace, the disciples were all respectful when they saw Jade Light Empress. Jade Light Empress was dressed in a pure white robe. She walked barefooted within the palace. There was a strand of vexation between her brows. She was originally in closed-door cultivation, but she suddenly felt uneasy. What happened? Jade Light Empress stood by the railing at the highest level of the God Palace. She held onto the railing and looked down at the huge city. And at this moment, there were a total of 6 figures in the distant sky. The leading one was a golden-robed man. He was tall and thin. His triangular eyes were looking down at the nation with a strand of savagery on his face. Capture Jade Light Empress alive for me. I want to personally devour her. The thin, golden-robed male coldly said, and all the cultivators in this city. Yes, yes, General Mogu. The 5 subordinates behind acknowledged. The thin, golden-robed male revealed an excited and expectant smile. He was none other than General Mogu, who possessed the shadowless talent. The other three kings had long split up and concealed their identities as they roamed the cultivation world. And these 5 subordinates were all golden-armored destruction devils. 2 of them had reached the 9th level strength, and the other 3 were at the peak of the 8th level. The 5 of them had been carefully selected and brought along with them back then. The mission of the 5 of them was to protect General Gu. It has been a long time. Previously, all of you didn't allow me to eat her. This time, I must eat to my heart's content. The thin golden-robed male extended his tongue and licked his lips. Chapter 968. In terms of heart temperament, the young General Gu should be the weakest destruction devil that came to the 5 great sacred worlds, because the other destruction devils that were brought here had strong self-control. Currently, General Gu did not have his heaven-defying voidification technique and was merely at the peak 7th level strength. He was still frequently influenced by the desire to destroy. Previously, when he wanted to kill, he was persuaded by his 5 subordinates. They said, "We have to be careful. If we want to kill, we should kill as many as we want. Usually, we have to restrain ourselves and not expose our tracks. If we were to provoke the cosmos gods from the cultivator's side, we'll be in big trouble." Ultimately, he was a golden-armored destruction devil. Even if his heart temperament was bad, he still had some self-control. He could endure until today. Prepare yourself. Do it. The chosen target, Jade Light Empress, was merely a primal chaos giant at the peak of the 7th level strength. She could not resist against the 5 terrifying golden-armored destruction devils at all. The expression of Jade Light Empress, who stood by the railing, changed abruptly. She turned over, only to see many strands enveloping her. With a thought, a surging green light surged, yet it was easily cut apart by those strands. The strands forcefully permeated into her body, sealing her strength. This made Jade Light Empress feel a chill in her heart. A single move, and he captured her alive? Could this be a terrifying existence at the 9th level star pagoda strength? General, the 5 black-robed men stood by the side and bowed respectfully. The thin golden-robed male, General Gu, walked over. He looked at Jade Light Empress with slight excitement. "Who are you?" Jade Light Empress asked. "Who am I?" "Ha. The person who will eat you." General Gu stretched out his hand and grabbed Jade Light Palace Mistress's fair neck, directly lifting her up. Then he opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue. His tongue instantly extended several meters and directly wrapped around Jade Light Palace Mistress. So, Jade Light Palace Mistress was directly swallowed into his stomach. The golden-robed General Gu was so excited that he was trembling slightly. This was the first time he killed a primal chaos cultivator. Satisfying his desire to destroy and nourishing his soul left him intoxicated. The moment the golden-robed General Gu opened his mouth, a terrifying ripple immediately enveloped the entire city. Inside the city, whether it was the inns or the cultivators in the mansions, countless cultivators flew up uncontrollably. The entire city spanned 5 million kilometers, and there were trillions of cultivators living within. Nonetheless, it was common for primal chaos existences to cover a few million kilometers with a single move, much less the 5 black-robed men behind General Gu. 2 of them were at the 9th level, and 3 were at the peak of the 8th level. With a thought, they had completely controlled the entire city. What happened? No. Even many of the disciples and people within this divine palace also flew over uncontrollably. The closer they flew towards the golden-robed General Gu, the more their bodies rapidly shrank, all of them being swallowed into his stomach. Even the 5 black-robed men at the side secretly used their methods to bind some of the Unity Realm experts who could resist the suction and send them into their general's mouth. Regardless of whether they were humans or other races, whether they were weak or strong, they were all swallowed into his stomach. With the help of the 5 of them and General Gu's own strength, trillions of living beings within this city were eaten. General Mo Gu was so excited that his eyes turned red. Eating so many cultivators was a form of enjoyment to a destruction devil. He immediately fell in love with his taste. Lost World Corridor. One of Donghua Shui Ying's incarnations was researching on the void ancient tree within the golden-armored graded lair space, and the other incarnation was walking within the Lost World Corridor. Amen? Being a cultivator who had been chosen beforehand to search for those destruction devils that had infiltrated the 5 great holy grounds, Donghua Shui Ying frequently received intelligence reports. They were all intelligence reports on those destruction devils hiding in the 5 great holy grounds. What? Donghua Shui Ying's expression changed. Jade Light Empress and the 3 trillion cultivators in the entire Jade Light City. They were all devoured. It was confirmed that the murderer was a destruction devil. 3 trillion cultivators? Donghua Shui Ying did not dare believe it. Even the 5 great sacred worlds, a city that could house so many cultivators, was a huge city. This was the territory of a primal chaos giant, and even Jade Light Empress had been devoured? Damn. Donghua Shui Ying was filled with killing intent. Everyone said that the destruction devils were born for the sake of destruction. Because they were resisting at the boundary of the void, the feeling was not too intense. But this time, the scale of devouring was so huge that it made Donghua Shui Ying tremble. Is this the supreme law? The supreme law actually gave birth to such evil destruction devils? Donghua Shui Ying gritted his teeth. Or should I say, we're just ants before the supreme law? Damn. Void Castle. A group of cosmos gods were gathered here. Naturally, they were mainly incarnations. Donghua Shui Ying had gotten the intelligence report, and the other cosmos gods naturally received it too. He actually devoured so many of them in one go. The destruction devils are really crazy for entering the 5 great sacred grounds. Jade Light Master softly sighed. Her eyebrows were filled with killing intent. She remembered that time when she was roaming the sacred world. She had guided that young lady before. That young lady eventually rose to the primal chaos realm, and she was happy about it. But who would have thought that she would end up in such a state? Jade Light Master turned to Forefather Tianyu. Tianyu, you said that Donghua Shui Ying's techniques are more formidable, and he's able to deal with dangerous situations. He even has the ultra-long distance teleportation technique to escape. When will he be able to pursue after these destruction devils? He has only reached the primal chaos realm for a short period, and I do not know what realm he has cultivated the Imperial Dragon inheritance to. I did not ask any further. Forefather Tianyu said, how about this? In a while, I'll ask him. If he has cultivated it to a large success, we'll let him act. All right, Wu Zhu, he is responsible for searching for the destruction devils, and it is possible for him to meet the cosmos gods within the destruction devils. What about the gifts we discussed previously? I've also prepared the life-saving gift for him. Sorcerer Ancestor nodded. Suddenly, Forefather Tianyu was slightly startled. He even revealed a look of excitement as he waved his hand. Who? By the side, the true body of Donghua Shui Ying, wearing a thick white robe, appeared. Forefather Tianyu was one of the 3 cosmos gods protecting the Void Castle. Even with his true bodyguarding, he could control part of the power of the Void Castle. Naturally, he could easily teleport the true body of Donghua Shui Ying here. What happened? Tianyu. The others were slightly startled and puzzled. Donghua has chanced upon an ultra-long distance teleportation technique, sending his incarnation into the Lost World Corridor. The location he was teleported to is actually a golden-armored graded lair. Forefather Tianyu did not dare to delay any longer. He directly transmitted over. What? Golden-armored graded lair? Everyone present was startled. Wu Zhu and the others were incredibly shocked. Donghua Shui Ying, hurry up and open the passage. Wu Zhu stared at Donghua Shui Ying. His eyes were unprecedentedly sharp. Yes. Donghua Shui Ying did not dare to hesitate. He immediately extended his hand and pointed ahead. Hong Long, the void before him suddenly distorted, and he could vaguely see the other side. "I'll go over first," Jade Light Master immediately said. She was also one of the 3 Cosmos gods protecting the Void Castle, and the only one who was a second-level Cosmos god. "Who?" The space by the side changed. The green-robed Void Primogenitor's true body appeared too. "I'll accompany you in." With Void Primogenitor, who specialized in the Void, entering together, the two of them were not afraid of all the Destruction Devil Kings working together. "Go!" Jade Light Master and Void Primogenitor directly walked along the passage opened by Shuang. They took a step and entered. After the second watch. Chapter 969. The golden-armored, grated lair space was extremely important to the Destruction Devils. It was heavily guarded, and the spatial entrance was disguised. Instead, there was only a single golden-armored Destruction Devil standing on the vast land within the lair guarding it. The Destruction Devils were clear. The moment the cultivators entered the lair space, it would be pointless even if they arranged for more golden-armored Destruction Devils. Space distorted, and the black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying appeared within this lair space. Seeing the scene within the lair space, he revealed a look of joy. "Who?" The golden-armored Destruction Devil guarding the lair turned around abruptly. With a glance, he saw the black-robed cultivator and could not help but feel horrified. He was discovered? "King, the third golden-armored lair has been discovered. An incarnation of a cultivator has appeared." The golden-armored Destruction Devil anxiously transmitted over. "Kill him." The kings who received the news were greatly alarmed. They did not have any ultra-long distance teleportation techniques, and it would take some time for them to rush over. "Die for me." This golden-armored Destruction Devil transmitted over to the kings. Without waiting for the king's order, he had taken the initiative to act. One could see a vast black cloud rolling towards the distant Dongbua Shuang, and Dongbua Shui Ying had teleported continuously. Clearly, his attainments in the void were extremely high. He was able to pull apart the distance between the two, and the golden-armored Destruction Devil could not catch up to him for a moment. Being a void walker who cultivated the 4 diagrams created by Emperor Jiyun, and cultivating bitterly in the Lost World Corridor for the past 20 billion years, Dongbua Shui Ying's attainments in the void had reached an exaggerated level. Many Cosmos gods could not compare to him in the void aspect. Even if it was just an incarnation, it was sufficient for him to show disdain for many primal chaos existences in the void aspect. Closely following that, this golden-armored lair space warped once again. 2 figures walked out from within. One of them was a beautiful and noble woman. She was the Jade Light Lord. The Jade Light Lord's beautiful eyes scanned the area, and her gaze fell on the distant ancient void tree. When she saw the golden eggs that were being nurtured on the ancient void tree, her eyes flashed with a dazzling light. She stretched out her hand, and a zither appeared in it. Then, she strummed the strings of the zither with her slender fingers as the music rang out. It even formed visible waves that spread in all directions. Beside the Jade Light Lord was the green-haired Void Primogenitor. The Void Primogenitor looked around coldly, but when he saw the Void Ancient Tree, he couldn't hide his excitement. Too late. The golden armored guard who was chasing after Dongbua Shui Ying fell into despair when he saw the Alcade Master and the Void Primogenitor. The moment Cosmos gods from the cultivators arrived, there would be no more hope. Hong, as the highest-level golden-armored void tree, it was extremely sturdy and stable. But when the Jade Light Lord personally took action, under the influence of the music, the golden eggs instantly turned to dust. The void tree began to twist and distort. In just 2 breaths of time, the entire void tree began to crumble. The entire space around it began to collapse. As for the golden-armored devilish guard, he had already been annihilated by the fluctuations of the music. "Let's go." Amidst the collapse of space, Lady of Alcade and Void Primogenitor were in a good mood as they directly used Great Void teleportation to leave. As for Dongbua Shui Ying's clone that was in disguise, it had already dissipated on its own. Lost World Corridor. The 5 kings of the destruction devils gathered together. Damn, how could this be? We are heavily guarded with many patrols. Even the space is disguised. How could we be discovered? The 5 kings were furious. They did not care if they lost 10 or 100 low-graded layers. Even if they lost more than half the blood-armored graded layers, they could still face it calmly. But every single golden-armored graded layers was highly valued by them, because this was the true foundation of their destruction devil race. Currently, there were a total of 15 kings who broke through from the golden-armored graded destruction devils and originated from the golden-armored graded layers. The golden-armored graded layers nurtured many batches of golden-armored destruction devils and were also the cradles of kings. They already felt heartache when they destroyed 2 golden-armored graded layers in the early stages. But at that time, they were too weak and had no choice. As their overall strength became stronger, the patrols and precautions were strengthened, and it had been a very long time since a golden-armored graded layer was discovered. Currently, there are a total of 6 golden-armored graded layers, and yet another one has been discovered. Emperor June sat there, with his segmented tails circling around him. His thin face had a pair of eyes that were filled with bloodlight. Even if more than 100 golden-armored destruction devils died, as long as they were given sufficient time, they would be born again. Only when the layers were destroyed would they truly break their roots. According to the intelligence, the other party did not kill his way in from the entrance. Instead, he appeared from thin air. It should be an ultra-long distance teleportation. Right, it should be an incarnation of the cultivators who just happened to be sent into the golden-armored graded layer. The other kings could only sigh. Even though they could not execute ultra-long distance teleportation, they had a deep understanding of the cultivators. They knew that the further the ultra-long distance teleportation was, the more exaggerated the deviation would be. It was impossible for there to be any spatial markings within the golden-armored graded layer. Hence, the deviation should be very exaggerated. This deviation had coincidentally led them into the golden-armored graded layer. After all, over the long years, the cultivators had been advancing wave after wave. Many cultivators were coming in to explore, and it was not impossible for them to be lucky enough to be sent into a golden-armored graded layer. Their luck is too good. Coincidentally teleporting into a golden-armored graded layer, all of them felt sullen. The eyes of Emperor June remained cold. He pondered for a moment before saying, "Investigate. Think of ways to investigate and see who is the one who discovered the golden-armored graded layer. We must ascertain whether he is lucky or has some unique cultivation technique." It was fine if it was just luck, since it was not a huge threat. But if there really was a scouting technique, it would be a huge problem for the destruction devils. Laughter could be heard within the void castle. Ha ha! We have destroyed a golden-armored graded layer this time, reducing the growth of the destruction devils by a huge chunk. It has been a long time since we had such a huge victory. Forefather Tian grinned. The other cosmos gods present, including Wu Zu, Jie, and others, revealed a rare smile. It had indeed been a long time since they had such a huge victory. In the early days, they were suppressing the destruction devils. They had successfully killed 4 kings and destroyed 2 golden-armored graded layers. But now, those kings dared to kill their way to the spatial barrier before retreating safely. Even though the cultivators held an absolute advantage, they could not kill the destruction devils. They had not even discovered a golden-armored graded layer for a long time. They had even invited Mount Chime and spent a huge amount of Origin World rocks, yet they could not find a single golden-armored graded layer. The layer is the root. Breaking off one of their roots will give us more time. Wuzu chuckled and nodded. If it is according to our guesses that the king is a golden-armored graded destruction devil who broke through, then the golden-armored graded layer would be even more important. The destruction devils would most likely be angered to the point of insanity. Currently, many of their experts have infiltrated the 5 great sacred worlds. Void Primogenitor turned to Dongbua, Shui, Ying, who stood by the side. The moment the news of Donghua Shui discovering a golden-armored graded lair spreads, the destruction devils would most likely vent their anger on Donghua. Amen. The other cosmos gods nodded. This matter must be kept a secret. Forefather Tian, you said, don't spread it out. Don't spread it out. Wuzu nodded too. His gaze landed on Donghua Shuang. He chuckled. Hall Master Donghua, is it luck that you discovered this golden-armored graded lair? Or do you have a unique cultivation technique? Chapter 970. At that moment, the other cosmos gods present turned to Donghua Shuang. Was it luck? Or was it a scouting technique? If there really was a special scouting method, then it would be of great help to all the cultivators. You can rest assured that none of the cosmos gods present will leak this news. Wuzu looked at Donghua Shuang. I relied on ultra-long distance teleportation. Donghua Shuang said, after breaking through to the primal chaos realm, I grasped the ultra-long distance teleportation technique. I sent my incarnation into the Lost World corridor and coincidentally sent it into a golden-armored graded lair. As for the scouting technique, is there some unique technique for finding golden-armored graded lairs? Wuzu, Jiezu, and the others looked at each other. They sighed inwardly. That's right. The environment of the Lost World corridor was unique. There were all sorts of dangers present, and there was a risk of dying when one's true body went to investigate. Only Myriad Realm Tavern Master and Mount Chime could send their incarnations to investigate. It's a pity that their requirements were ridiculously high. It was not bad for Donghua Shui to be lucky enough to discover a lair. He could not hope for more. It is too difficult to discover a golden-armored graded lair. You usually send your incarnations over too. Trying your luck might be the only way for us to find a golden-armored graded lair. Wuzu said, unless absolutely necessary, they would not agree to Mount Chime's request since they did not have many Origin World rocks. Yes, Donghua Shui answered. Blade Emperor waved his hand, causing a silver hoop to fly over. This is 100,000 Origin World rocks. It is also gathered by the various parties. Since you have discovered a golden-armored graded lair, this is what you deserve. The Cosmos Gods had already publicized the rewards. Donghua Shui happily received it. In his heart, he decided that he would eat these 100,000 Origin World rocks. After all, his incarnation could spy on them. As long as he had enough time, he believed that he would be able to discover a second or even a third golden-armored grade nest in the future. However, it would be a long time before he would be able to make it public again. After all, if he discovered 2 nests, he would not be able to explain it away with luck. Perhaps everyone would suspect him. However, Xiao Chun had many treasures. There was still some left behind by his master, Gu Qi. If he ate these 100,000, it would be of great help to his soul. It would also be of great help to his cultivation. All right, Donghua. Forefather Tian, you smiled. Have you cultivated your Imperial Dragon inheritance to the 9th Revolution realm? I have mastered it, Donghua Shuang said. With Yang Kai's strength and the 3-colored layered cloud, although he had fought many golden-armored demons at the edge of the void, none of them was qualified to force him to use the Imperial Dragon inheritance. The Devil Mountain primogenitor by the side laughed. Good. I heard from Tian Yu that your defensive techniques are already very powerful. Now that the Imperial Dragon inheritance has reached the 9th Revolution, it should be even more impressive. You should also know that we have a mission for you. I know. It is to investigate the infiltrating destruction devils. Donghua Shuang nodded. Right. Jade Light Master's voice was sweet. She added, these destruction devils are extremely cunning. Furthermore, they have some unknown techniques that we do not know of. They could stealthily escape from our seals. Furthermore, we Cosmos Gods have chased after them many times, but they should be able to sense the strength of us cultivators. The moment we Cosmos Gods chased after them, they would not appear at all, and most primal chaos existences would fall when facing them. Donghua Shuang nodded. Previously, they received the news Jade Light Empress did not have the time to escape before being devoured. Those destruction devils that infiltrated were indeed powerful. Previously, there were even two peak 8th level primal chaos existences that died in their hands. This was also why, even though they were anxious, they still waited for Dongbua Shui Ying's defensive techniques to become stronger. Furthermore, Dongbua Shui Ying still had the ultra-long distance teleportation. Only then did they feel reassured to let Dongbua Shui Ying investigate. After all, according to their estimations, there might be cosmos gods that infiltrated. By then, Dongbua Shui Ying might very well face cosmos gods. This is the gift that we have prepared for you. Wu Zhu extended his hand, causing a black bracelet to appear. This black bracelet was formed by 12 beads chained together. Every bead contained a three-dimensional array that was faintly discernible within. This black bracelet directly flew over. Dongbua Shui Ying received it. Just as it landed in his hand, he felt a terrifying weight acting on it. Even with his strength, he could feel his palm sinking. Every bead was much heavier than the sun star. The 12 primal beads are rare treasures condensed from the earth essence during the primitive ancient sacred world era. These 12 beads were formed at the same time. Wu Zhu said, "Cosmos gods would usually prepare protective secret treasures for themselves. But that secret treasure is something that a primal chaos existence like you could not fully activate. Due to the limitation of your strength, the 12 primal beads are practically the best for you. After you refine it, the moment you activate it, you will be protected by 12 layers of protective god light at the same time. Even I, Jiezu, and Blade Emperor would require 1 to 2 moments to break through it. This period is sufficient for you to use ultra-long distance teleportation to escape." Wu Zhu said. Only Sacred Master could break through it instantaneously. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. He was ultimately at the primal chaos realm. It was already heaven-defying for him to rely on this secret treasure to survive in front of Jiezu and Wu Zhu. Wu Zhu and the others had thought of all possible methods. As for Sacred Master, the gap between him and Sacred Master was ultimately too big. The destruction devils do not have existences on the level of Sacred Master. Forefather Tian Yu chuckled. "This secret treasure is sufficient for you, Dongbua. But you have to be careful not to be ambushed. If you were to be assassinated before you could activate it, then you can only blame yourself for not being strong enough." Understand, Dongbua Shui Ying was still very confident. The law domain naturally existed. Being a primal chaos realm giant, his law domain could be spread across an area of 50,000 kilometers. No matter who entered this region, they would be discovered by Dongbua Shui Ying. It was too difficult to invade his law domain without being discovered. Dongbua Shui Ying was the first primal chaos realm expert in the Dao Mirage in history. His law domain was incredibly mystical. Actually, experts who cultivated the laws and profound mystery system were famous for having a law domain that was hard to penetrate, because they had seen through the essence of their Dao path. For instance, the Devour class and Ancient Cultivation class cultivators were formed naturally through their law domains. Experts who cultivated the laws and profound mystery system would deliberately construct their own domain. Other than the law domain, Dongbua Shui Ying was extremely sensitive to the void. After cultivating for 20 billion years in the Lost World Corridor, his Walker's hidden secret had been pushed to the 49th level. In addition to Emperor Jiyun cultivating the 2nd and 3rd diagrams, his control over the void was extremely high. 1 law domain, 1 spatial perception. Both of these were constantly being maintained. These destruction devils that sneaked in are extremely powerful. 2 peak 8th level experts have fallen and could not escape in time. One has to know that they are confident of surviving against 9th level experts. Devil Mountain Primogenitor said with a low voice. He looked at Dongbua Shui Ying. "That is why we have always suspected that there are cosmos gods sneaking in. There aren't many 9th level star pagoda cultivators, and there are only 4 who could teleport through an ultra-long distance. 1 is from the ancient sacred world. 1 is a subordinate of Ancestor Mother, and the last is the extremely selfish Mount Chai Mei. Thus, we only have you, Dongbua, who is suitable for this mission. Dongbui Shuang nodded. You are the only one. Thus, you have to be more careful. Devil Mountain Primogenitor said. You are the best candidate to investigate them. Blade Emperor added. Your safety is the most important. Usually, such huge matters would be resolved by cosmos gods personally. Nonetheless, those destruction devils that were hiding could sense the strength of cultivators. They would not appear even if they sensed cosmos gods. As for those weaker primal chaos existences, they would simply be sending themselves to death. Yes, Dongbui Shuang nodded. Hurry up and refine the secret treasure. After that, go and carry out the mission. Blade Emperor solemnly said. Our subordinates will send all sorts of intelligence to you. As for how you're going to search and investigate, it's up to you. Within the Void Castle, Dongbui Shuang had been in closed-door cultivation for 9 years before he completely refined the 12 primal beads. Naturally, he had also eaten all 100,000 Origin World rocks during this 9 years. I'm leaving. On that day, Dongbui Shuang drank and bid farewell to some of his good friends. They were practically all friends he had been familiar with for the past 20 billion years. Following that, he used an ultra-long distance teleportation to leave the Void Castle. He began traversing the primal chaos void and the 3 great sacred worlds in search of those destruction devils that were hiding in the Void Castle. This mission did not have a time limit, and he would most likely spend a long time chasing after them. He would kill the weak ones, and he would invite cosmos gods to kill the strong ones. Naturally, Dongbui Shuang had arranged for 2 great incarnations to continue searching in the Lost World Corridor. Chapter 971. Myriad Ancient Sacred World. Within a grand ancient city, Shishan City, there were many cultivators. This was also the place where the primal chaos giant, forefather Shishan, established his religion. Many cultivators dreamed of becoming his disciple. Even if they could not do so, with his protection, many cultivators were willing to stay here. In a restaurant, Dongbui Shuang, who was wearing a thick white robe, sat by a corner. He was seated alone at a table. On the table were some famous dishes and wine. Even though he was eating, he was frowning. This caused the waiter of the restaurant to ask, Is it because the wine and the dishes are not to your liking? You should withdraw first. Dongbui Shuang ordered. The waiter naturally withdrew and no longer asked. Dongbui Shuang remained frowning. How should I investigate? How should I investigate the destruction devils who are hiding in the city? The 3 great sacred worlds were fully supporting him. Currently, a large amount of intelligence had been sent to Dongbui Shuang. But looking at the vast amount of intelligence, Dongbui Shuang understood that it was very difficult to find the destruction devils who were hiding in the city. Cosmos gods had many techniques, and the organizations under them were quite powerful too. They were spread across various places, but they could not capture the destruction devils who were hiding in the city even once. Not even once. And now that he was looking at the intelligence, Dongbui Shuang understood the reason. He is too vigilant, and he is too strong. Dongbui Shuang thought. There were a total of 9 primal chaos giants who were confirmed to have been killed by the destruction devils. Over the long years, there would only be 1 primal chaos giant every trillion years on average. Most of their massacres were targeted at relatively weaker forces, such as the small forces that were ruled by Unity realm experts. Such organizations were as many as the hairs on a cow. It was normal for them to be destroyed by Devour-class devils. Thus, it was not eye-catching for the destruction devils to act. There were more than 100 instances of smaller organizations being devoured and killed by the destruction devils. In addition to the vast primal chaos void, it was too common for small organizations to be destroyed. There were even more cases where the destruction devils were not discovered. It was possible for it to happen several thousand times. Instead, he would only target Primal Chaos Realm 9 times, because the fall of a Primal Chaos Giant was a huge matter. Every fall would shake the world and attract cosmos gods to investigate the matter. It was something that could not be concealed. On the contrary, It was very common for small forces to be destroyed. Dealing against a primal chaos giant would only happen once every trillion years. Is too long. It is more appropriate for me to investigate the various small organizations. Dongbua Ying pondered. Furthermore, the places guarded by primal chaos giants are much tighter, and the destruction devils might be exposed if they are slightly careless. They're also more likely to live in remote places. The destruction devils seem to have a technique to perceive the strength of cultivators. They could even perceive the concealed aura of cosmos gods. If that's the case, then we'll use the stupidest method to track them down. Dongbua Ying pondered for a while and decided on his own strategy based on what he was good at. His own defenses, secret treasures, and ultra-long distance teleportation could only guarantee him a certain degree of survival when he chased after the destruction devils. As for investigating, Ying had to have a strategy. Otherwise, trying to find those destruction devils who specialized in concealing their strength and aura in the vast primal chaos void was like searching for a needle in a haystack. After deciding on a strategy in his heart, Dongbua Ying revealed a grin. He began eating leisurely. After finishing the delicacies in front of him, he paid for the food and wine before walking out of the restaurant. Just as he left the restaurant and walked on the wide street, Wong, the edge of Dongbua Ying's mouth curved into a grin. An enormous illusory realm immediately enveloped this huge city spanning 5 million kilometers. The livestock and beasts within the city, the trillion cultivators, and even that Forefather River Mountain had all fallen into the illusory realm. Forefather River Mountain was ultimately an expert at the 7th floor of Star Tower. His realm was not too high, and his heart temperament was considered ordinary. Even though he was barely able to maintain a strand of consciousness, he knew who he was. His consciousness was not completely blinded, but he could not struggle out of the environment. At this moment, this huge city had completely fallen into the illusory realm. Only one person was awake. The thick white-robed Dongbua Ying shook his head softly as he walked on the street. Everyone in the Shi Mountain City has fallen into the illusory realm. According to the intelligence, that the destruction devils that infiltrated and should be extremely powerful. They should not fall into it so easily, and even if they did, they should not have no reaction towards the Lost World Corridor and the destruction devils. According to his deductions, there should not be any destruction devils within the Shi Mountain City. Next location. As Dongbua Ying walked, the void in front of him distorted. He took a step and disappeared. The illusory realm that enveloped the Shi Mountain City had completely disappeared. Everyone regained their consciousness. Those who had their consciousness blinded had forgotten everything that happened within the illusory realm. Only that Forefather River Mountain retained his memories of what happened within the illusory realm. Illusory realm? I fell into the illusory realm for a breath of time. Forefather River Mountain felt a chill down his spine. He immediately scouted the entire Shi Mountain City. He felt slightly uneasy in his heart, yet he did not dare to investigate further. After all, the other party could instantly make him fall into the illusory realm without being able to struggle out. Killing him was as easy as lifting a hand. This was one of the nations within the vast Eastern Unicorn sacred world. There were many cultivators living within the city of this nation. At this moment, the illusory realm enveloped the entire nation. A white-robed male walked out of the illusory realm. There are still no destruction devils here, but there are quite a few members of the ancient sacred religion. Very soon, the moment this piece of news was reported upwards, the Eastern Unicorn sacred world would naturally arrange for experts to deal with it. That's right. This was Dongbua Ying's strategy. It was a seemingly foolish method to investigate every single place without any pattern. By relying on ultra-long distance teleportation, Dongbua Ying could casually head to any location within the 3 great sacred worlds. He could even head to some land within the vast primal chaos void, and he would be enveloped by an enormous illusory realm. In his opinion, the powerful destruction devils should be able to escape from the illusory realm. Furthermore, the illusory realm he formed had guided part of the information regarding the destruction devils. If the destruction devils had fallen into the illusory realm, they should have been exposed. It's a pity that he failed time and time again. The number of destruction devils that infiltrated into the three great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void were too vast. Even though Dongbua Shui Ying's illusory realm covered an entire city, he did not discover any destruction devils at all. Instead, it was the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion that had been discovered by Dongbua Shui Ying due to his tireless investigation. He even specially went to some desolate places to investigate, allowing him to discover quite a few members of the ancient sacred religion and ancestor mother religion. This caused the two great religions to suffer losses one after another. What is happening? Why are we exposed again? The two great religions were slightly puzzled. Nevertheless, not many knew about Dongbua Shui Ying's tireless investigation. After all, most small organizations would only have Unity Realm experts. How could they remain conscious under the illusory realm of Dongbua Shuang? After the illusory realm, they would no longer remember anything. Naturally, the two great religions could not find out the reason. Time passed. Dongbua Shuang searched for the destruction devils. His footprints were all over the place, and in the blink of an eye, more than 2 billion years had passed. Chapter 972. Dongbua Shuang was like an ascetic monk walking around, casting illusory realms time after time. In reality, his soul was strong, and his realm was high. Casting illusory realms, he only needed to use 1% of his heart force to deal with them. Most of his thoughts were focused on cultivation. Every time he cast an illusory realm, 1 trillion life forms would fall into it. Every life form would trigger different transformations in the illusory realm, allowing Dongbua Shuang to have a new understanding of the Tao of Mirage. Ascetic cultivation was also a form of cultivation. 7-star Oceanic Sacred World, Moon Phoenix Nation. The Moon Phoenix Nation was a nation with a long history. The previous king was cruel and ruthless. He was not popular among the people. Many cultivators were not convinced in the dark, but it was a world where the strong ruled. The cultivators in the nation could only endure. Later on, the current king appeared. As he had enmity with the previous king, he killed his way into the royal palace and killed the previous king. After that, he was appointed as the new king. From then on, the Moon Phoenix Nation had a better life. Firstly, the king was stronger. It was rumored that he was at the peak of the 4th-level star pagoda standard. Secondly, the king had a good temperament. He loved to cultivate and would enter closed-door cultivation whenever he was free. The commoners in the city naturally liked such a king. Hong Long. The cultivation room door opened. The current Moon Phoenix King was thin and tall. He was handsome and had a pair of long and narrow eyes. He was slightly bewitching. Even though he was a male, he gave off a slight charm. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. The female attendants in the palace naturally bowed respectfully when they saw the king. Moon Phoenix King chuckled and nodded. He ordered, "Prepare yourself. I want to take a bath." Yes. The maids in the palace were all quite happy because the current king's temper was indeed very good. He was also very gentle to the maids. Moon Phoenix King walked alone. He came to a high place in the royal palace. He leaned on the railing and looked at the waning moon in the sky. He chuckled. Xiao. He immediately flew into the sky and disappeared. In another desolate little nation far away from the Moon Phoenix Nation, there was a city that occupied an area of about 2.5 million kilometers. The size of the city did not represent how strong or weak it was, because some Unity Realm experts dared to construct cities that spanned over 5 million kilometers or even tens of millions of kilometers. However, if it was too huge, the moment it suffered a sneak attack from a devil, Unity Realm experts would not be able to protect it perfectly. Just like the 13 primal chaos cities under the Great Void Heaven Temple, Every single one of them was only a few 100 million miles in size. Even the Holy Lands did not dare to build them too big. They could afford to build them, but they could not protect them. Wasn't that a joke? For cultivators, it was not difficult to build a city, no matter how large it was. What was difficult was to be able to protect it and ensure its safety. Moon Phoenix King appeared in the sky above this nation and looked down. The number of people living in the city within a radius of 5 million kilometers was not considered high. It was only about 1/3 of the number of people living in the Moon Phoenix Nation. However, the number of people living there was still in the hundreds of millions. It has been a long time since I tasted delicacies. Moon Phoenix Monarch chuckled. Invisible waves spread out and instantly enveloped the entire country below. In an instant, all the people in the country had their powers sealed. They couldn't speak, nor could they send messages to the outside world. Come on. The Moon Phoenix King stretched out his hand. Shio, shio, shio. Countless citizens flew up and flew into the sleeves of the Moon Phoenix King. Very soon, the entire kingdom below became empty. There were no living beings at all. It had become a purely empty city. An hour later, Moon Phoenix King returned to the royal palace. The water in the bathing pool had long been heated up. Everyone retreat. Yes, the female attendants all retreated. Moon Phoenix King lay alone in the bathing pool. He had a smile on his face and felt relaxed. Being a king of a nation in the world of cultivators is truly comfortable. Woo, there's also my delicacies. He waved his hand, causing many tiny figures to appear. He opened his mouth and sucked in. A terrifying, devouring force appeared, causing those tiny figures to fly into his mouth without any resistance. Many of the tiny figures revealed a horrified expression. They were even screaming out, yet they could not make any sound at all. Chi, chi, chi. Moon Phoenix King casually chewed and swallowed them. He revealed a look of enjoyment on his face. Even though I've broken free from the control of the desire to destroy, I'm ultimately still a destruction devil. The feeling of devouring cultivators is truly too comfortable. Moon Phoenix King was enjoying himself. That was how he was. Occasionally, he would go out and capture all the citizens of a nation alive. Occasionally, he would eat some, and when he finished, he would go out and capture them again. Given his strength, it was impossible for him to leave behind any traces. The cultivators could not ascertain whether it was the destruction devils or some devour-class evil devil who did it. After all, he was the king of the destruction devils. To those desolate little nations, he was too powerful. He was so powerful that they could not resist at all. That hex cultivation scripture is too complicated. It's easy to cultivate the devour class, but it's a pity that it isn't suitable for us destruction devils. Moon Phoenix King shook his head inwardly. He pondered over the scripture which he had read before entering closed-door cultivation. To them, the laws and profound mystery system and the hex cultivation system were of great help to them. They could even evolve their talents, but it was too difficult to cultivate them. Moon Phoenix Nation. Dongbua Shui Ying first relied on ultra-long-distance teleportation to arrive at a place slightly further away from the Moon Phoenix Nation. He then teleported closer to the nation. He did the same every time he went to investigate. He did not dare to use ultra-long-distance teleportation to reach his destination because he would be discovered by the destruction devils. They would flee in fright. Teleportation was extremely common. Moon Phoenix Nation. Dongbua Shui Ying could already see this nation city in the distance. He did not care too much about it, since he had yet to find a single destruction devil after searching for more than 2 billion years. The world was too big, and there were too few destruction devils. It was indeed hard to find them. Even though Dongbua Shui Ying was rushing over, 99% of his thoughts were on cultivation. Taking a step, Dongbua Shui Ying arrived above the Moon Phoenix Nation. At the same time, he sent down a huge illusory realm with great familiarity. The illusory realm was so big that it easily enveloped the entire Moon Phoenix Nation. At this moment, Many civilians within the Moon Phoenix Nation had fallen into the illusory realm. Even the livestock that were being reared had fallen into the illusory realm. The entire Moon Phoenix Nation became extremely quiet. Even the heavily guarded Moon Phoenix Nation Royal Palace had its guards and female attendants falling into the illusory realm. The entire place was silent. There was only Moon Phoenix King who was lying there. Previously, he was leisurely being fed wine and fruits by the female attendants. At this moment, all the female attendants by his side had fallen into the illusory realm. The expression of Moon Phoenix King changed slightly. He immediately looked up. His vision penetrated through the wall and saw that white-robed young man in midair. Similarly, Dongbua Shui also discovered this Moon Phoenix King, because he was the only person in the entire Moon Phoenix Nation who did not fall into the illusory realm. Who is he? According to the intelligence, Moon Phoenix King is merely at the Unity realm and has not even reached the 5th level Star Pagoda strength. Why isn't he affected by my illusory realm at all? Dongbua Shui revealed a joyous look. It might be possible that he had finally discovered a destruction devil. Haha, laughter sounded. A pitch-black, enormous mouth suddenly appeared in the sky above the entire Moon Phoenix Nation. This mouth was even bigger than the entire nation city. The insides of this mouth were pitch-black and bottomless. It engulfed the entire city in Shuang. Have you discovered me? Cultivator, I really have to congratulate you. The laughter was still reverberating by the ears of Dongbua Shuang. Absorb. Dongbua Shuang could not help but change his expression when he saw that incomparably enormous mouth appearing above him. That enormous mouth abruptly sucked downwards, causing the entire city below to distort and shatter. Many sentient beings were crushed too. That terrifying, devouring force also acted on the body of Dongbua Shuang. Not good, it's a cosmos god. Dongbua Shuang was greatly frightened. Who would have thought that the first destruction devil he discovered was actually a cosmos god? That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.